Chapter 440. Going to Wanqing Prefecture alone B0 Zenvel. The carriage rolled forward. It did not rest much along the way. At night, Yundong fell asleep in Xiao Qingyuan's arms. Xiao Qingyuan looked at her smiling face and couldn't help but think of the scene in the day. He was sure that he hadn't seen wrongly when the 4 jars of wine suddenly disappeared and appeared again. He didn't know what kind of trick she had used to fool the robbers and him, but she clearly had no intention of saying it, so he didn't ask. The carriage arrived at Qingyuan Prefecture on the morning of the 3rd day. They did not encounter any robbers along the way, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Wang was much better. He ate 2 more pills given by Xiao Qingyuan. They were indeed effective. Because of this, escort Wang even bought a small bottle from him. Yundong and Xiao Qingyuan were separated at the city gate. She had no intention of entering the city. Xiao Qingyuan could only remind her to be careful on the road. Then, he frowned and accompanied her for a long distance before returning. When he entered the city again, it was already noon. Yundong only left with Tong Xuetao. Xiao Qingyuan wanted her to bring Am Mo, but she did not agree. She had always been unwilling to bring too many people around for help. It was enough to have Tong Xuetao by her side. Am Mo and Zhu were men, so it was inconvenient. Tong Xuetao was not used to not traveling with the convoy. She drove the carriage and let her lady rest in the carriage. She was a little nervous and excited. Wanqing Prefecture was relatively close to Qingyuan Prefecture. They rushed and arrived at the city gate in more than 10 days. When they arrived, it was already evening. The carriage barely entered the city before the city gate closed. Even though it was already this hour, Wanqing Prefecture was still very lively. Compared to Yongning Prefecture, which had experienced famine, and Qingyuan Prefecture, which had experienced chaos, this place was more than a little prosperous. However, there were probably many refugees who had come to Wanqing Prefecture back then. Now, there were many people on the streets who looked down and out while trying to get a job. "Miss, where are we staying tonight?" Tong Xuetao asked Yundong, who was also sitting on the shaft of the carriage and sizing up the street scenery on both sides. "Ask if there's a Huimin Medical Center here." Tong Xuetao responded and got off the carriage. She found a shop assistant who was still working and asked. Unexpectedly, the waiter shook his head. "I've been working in this prefectural city for 3 years, but I've never heard of Huimin Medical Center. Miss, can you ask someone else?" Tong Xuetao found 2 more passers-by, who also shook their heads. She could only run back in disappointment. "Miss, they said that this clinic doesn't exist in the prefectural city." Yundong frowned. Be it the Xuanhe Prefecture, the Qingyuan Prefecture, or even the Yongning Prefecture that had been rebuilt after the disaster, the Huimin Medical Center had established a branch there. Moreover, they were quite famous, but the Huimin Medical Center did not establish a branch here. When she was in Qingyuan Prefecture, she had a good relationship with shopkeeper Chao of Huimin Medical Center. Especially with Song Dajiang in the middle, shopkeeper Chao even gave her a letter when she left. He said that Huimin Medical Center was branched all over Dajiang. If she needed any help in the future, she could ask the medical center for help. With this letter, Huimin Medical Center could make things easier for her. However, she did not expect Wanqing Prefecture to not have it. "Then let's go. Let's find an inn to stay in first. Tomorrow we'll ask around about the Xian family." "Of course, my lady." The carriage finally stopped at the entrance of a hotel called Yuelai Inn. Yundong had booked 2 rooms. She still wanted her privacy. When the waiter brought them upstairs, she still did not give up and asked, "Is there a Huimin Medical Center in Wanqing Prefecture?" Chapter 441. Someone is following us. The waiter was stunned for a moment. He thought for a moment and said, "I don't think so. However, the prefectural city is so big. The Huimin Medical Center that you mentioned might be hidden in an alley. I'm not very knowledgeable. Should I help you ask around later?" "Thank you." Yundong smiled at him. Before she left, she had specially given him a tip. The waiter's face lit up. As expected, he became even more attentive. Tong Xuetao looked at his back and said, "This waiter is really meticulous. That's why you can only be envious when others get rewards." Gu Yundong teased her and entered the house without looking back. Tong Shuetao immediately became a little dejected and carried the things in her hand into the room. Yulai Inn was not far from the city gate. Gu Yundong was only resting for the night. She would definitely keep looking tomorrow. The waiter was really responsible. Later, after she finished eating, he even came over and told her about what he had found out. I've asked the shopkeeper and the night watchman. There's indeed no Huimin Medical Center. Gu Yundong thanked him and did not dwell on this matter. She rested early that day. The next morning after breakfast, she asked the waiter where Xian Manor was. The Xian Manor was quite famous in the Wanqing Prefecture. The waiter immediately pointed in a certain direction, but it was a little far. The manor was in the west of the city. Gu Yundong took Tong Shuetao to the west of the city and found an inn nearby. She then went out and planned to walk around the Xian residence. According to the waiter, the Xian family was very famous in Wanqing Prefecture because the Xian family was not only rich, but also powerful. Putting everything else aside, the second young master of the Xian family had married the daughter of the prefecture magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture and was in-laws with the prefecture magistrate. Not to mention that when the late emperor traveled in the south more than 20 years ago, when he arrived at Wanqing Prefecture, it was the Xian Prefecture who received him. Even if the late emperor was not a good person, the Xian family had such glorious deeds. They could do whatever they wanted in the prefectural city. Hence, when she recalled that Song Dajiang asked her to buy Musi from the Xian family if she could, she wanted to hammer him to death. She was indeed considered rich now, but that was only compared to the villagers of Yongfu village. Compared to the Xian family, they did not care about all her assets, okay? How could she buy it? Since she couldn't buy it, she could only think of another way. She really hoped that the head of the Xian family would be like Peng Zhongfei back then, a person who could be duped into obediently taking out things. Gu Yundong sighed. However, after circling around the entrance of the Xian manor, she decided to return to the inn first. It was better to think about it at length. Tong Shuetao had no idea what her mistress was thinking. Wherever her mistress went, she would follow. When the two of them returned from the Xian manor and were about to reach the inn, Tong Shuetao suddenly frowned. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and stopped in her tracks. Tong Shuetao quickly walked to her side and whispered into her ear, "Miss, someone is following us. Does the Xian family know that we're plotting against them?" The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. "Aren't you thinking too highly of the Xian family?" She shook her head. "No. This person's tracking methods are clumsy. He was discovered immediately. So what do we do?" "Go down that alley." Gu Yundong gestured and glanced to the left. Tong Shuetao nodded, and the two of them continued forward as if nothing had happened. When they reached the alley and entered, they turned around and waited for the other party to arrive. As expected, there were no surprises at all. The people behind followed closely into the alley. Chapter 442. What did you say? My father unexpectedly, when he looked up, the man saw Gu Yundong and Tong Shuetao's sneering expressions and Tong Shuetao's provocative look. But in the next moment, Gu Yundong's expression disappeared. Tong Shuetao was also stunned. This was because the other party was an old man with patches all over his clothes. He looked down and out. In fact, Gu Yundong felt that this person looked familiar, but she could not remember. The old man was also stunned. He hesitated for a while before asking in a hoarse voice, "Are you Miss Gu?" He did not dare to recognize her. After all, she looked well-dressed and rich. She did not look like someone he knew at all. "My surname is Gu, and you are—" Gu Yundong thought for a moment and someone suddenly flashed across her mind. She widened her eyes and asked, "Are you Grandpa Yu?" Joy flashed across the other party's face. "You're really Yundong?" "Yes, it's me." Gu Yundong really did not expect that the old man she had met outside the Qingan prefecture would bump into her again. She took a few steps forward and walked to Grandpa Ye's side. "I didn't expect to see you again. How have you been recently?" Great, I'm fine." Just as he finished speaking, there was a gurgling sound in his stomach. Grandpa Yu immediately felt embarrassed. "I had some porridge in the morning." I went out for a walk and it was gone. There's a wonton shop over there. Let's go eat a bowl of wontons. No need, no need. I'll just go home and eat. Gu Yundong had already helped him over. It's been more than half a year since we last met. I'll catch up with you. I also want to try the wontons here. Grandpa Yu did not say anything else. He knew that she had always been kind. Before she left last time, she gave them a basket of food, which allowed the family to make it to Wanqing Prefecture. At the wonton stall, Gu Yundong ordered 3 bowls of wontons. Grandpa Yu was indeed hungry. When he saw the white and fat wonton floating in the bowl, he couldn't help but wipe his face and lower his head to eat. Gu Yundong waited for him to finish eating before asking, "Grandpa Yu, how did you recognize me? Wasn't her image too different from before? Why was Grandpa Yu's eyes so sharp?" Grandpa Yu wiped his mouth and couldn't help but laugh. "I've been squatting over there, looking for a job. When I heard the two of you talking, I felt that it sounded very familiar, so I couldn't help but follow behind. Actually, I didn't expect it to really be you. I was just asking when you discovered me. I didn't expect." As he spoke, he could not help but sigh. Then he looked up and asked, "By the way, where are you staying now?" "I'm at the Xuanhe Prefecture." Grandpa Yu was stunned. "Xuanhe Prefecture? You went to the Xuanhe Prefecture back then?" "Yes." Gu Yundong nodded. "I originally planned to come here." She lied. In fact, her goal was the Xuanhe Prefecture from the beginning. She just did not tell anyone. But at that time, I saw too many people coming to Wanqing Prefecture. I thought that with so many people running over, what if it became chaotic again? So I went to Xuanhe Prefecture. "I see." Grandpa Yu muttered in a daze, No wonder we couldn't catch up to you when we sped up. No wonder your father couldn't find you no matter how hard he searched." Gu Yundong stopped wiping the corners of her mouth and suddenly looked up at him in disbelief. "Grandpa Yu, what did you say? My father?" Chapter 443. So Gu Dajiang is here. Grandpa Yu was shocked by her sudden raised voice. Gu Yundong could not help but stand up. "I didn't hear wrongly. Did you just say my father? Have you seen my father?" Seeing this, Grandpa Yu nodded. "Yes, your father is in Wanqing Prefecture and has been looking for you." Gu Yundong's breathing suddenly quickened. The surprise caught her off guard, and her hands began to tremble slightly. She hurriedly asked, "Then where is he now? Where is my father now? Can you take me to him?" "He went out yesterday and hasn't returned yet." After Grandpa Yu finished speaking, he saw her frown and look disappointed. He hurriedly added, "But you don't have to worry. Your father usually comes back every 2 to 3 days. He heard that there was news of you yesterday and left in a hurry. I didn't have time to ask him where he was going. If he doesn't find you, he will still come back. He lives in the same courtyard as us. You'll see him in a day or 2. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief and sat back down. The joy on her face was still on. Tong Shuetao, who was beside her, was also extremely excited. Unexpectedly, after they had just arrived at Wanqing Prefecture, while they were at a loss as to how to buy Musi, the heavens gave them such a huge surprise. Great, there was finally news of Old Master. Gu Yundong calmed down a little and asked the owner of the wonton shop to pour 2 cups of tea. She then spoke again, "Grandpa Yu, can you tell me about my father? How did you meet him? How is he now? Your father has really suffered a lot to find you." After receiving the help of Gu Yundong's basket of food, the 3 of them decided to come to Wanqing Prefecture. Initially, Gu Yundong's family had set off less than half an hour earlier than them. They had thought that they could catch up to her if they were fast. They could travel together so that they could take care of each other. Unexpectedly, they never met again, but that was normal. At that time, there were too many people coming this way. It was crowded and they were all in a hurry to travel. It was indeed not easy to meet again. Later on, they arrived at Wanqing Prefecture. However, the city gate of Wanqing Prefecture was also closed, preventing anyone from entering. However, even at the city gate, there were people here who offered porridge for free. They could last for a while. The Yu family had also looked for Gu Yundong, but there had been no news. It was only when the new emperor ascended the throne, the city gate opened, and a new order was issued that they finally heaved a sigh of relief. Just like Gu Yundong's choice back then, the Yu family did not intend to return to their hometown, so they took root in Wanqing Prefecture. Unfortunately, they had no backing or money. In the end, they were assigned to a remote village by the local government. Not only was that place remote, but it was also especially poor. It was very difficult for men and women to marry, and the land was very barren. If they stayed in that village, they would probably live a hard life for the rest of their lives. After a discussion, the Yu family decided to register in the village. However, they went to the prefectural city to find work. At the very least, they had to try their luck. They still had some money on them, so they rented a small courtyard. However, it was easier said than done to find work in the prefectural city for those who had no roots. Especially since there were many refugees who had escaped from the famine here. They could endure hardship and demand low wages. Now, Grandpa Ye's son was helping someone move the goods. His grandson was working in a small shop, but the salary was pitifully low. Even so, he cherished this job. After all, if he didn't do it, there would be countless people waiting in line to do it. Chapter 444. Where my father lives. They met Gu Dajiang more than a month after they settled down. At first, Grandpa Ye's son, who was helping people move the goods, overheard someone asking Gu Yundong's name when he was chatting with someone. At that time, he did not know who this person was, but Gu Yundong's name was too familiar. She could be considered their family's benefactor. He went over and asked Gu Dajiang a few questions. Only then did he realize that this was Gu Yundong's father. Didn't Miss Gu look for her father at the city gate of Qingan Prefecture? When your father heard that we had seen you, he was overjoyed. Grandpa Yu said, unfortunately, at that time, we all thought that you had come to Wanqing Prefecture, so your father has been staying here to search for you. He does everything. He followed my son to carry goods, wash horses, and pour night urine. He goes wherever there's work. The money he earned is all used to find you. He asked the peddlers on the streets to help him. He went to the government office and gave money to the constables and asked the passing escorts to look for you. The copper coins on him are only enough for him to eat. Originally, he planned to sleep under the bridge in a dilapidated temple. Those places don't cost money. We dragged him to live in the small courtyard we rented. Back then, you left us a basket of sweet potatoes and saved the lives of our family of 3. When we saw your father, could we not give him a place to live? Gu Yundong was stunned. How was that possible? How could Gu Dajiang be in such dire straits? He can read and is very smart. My father used to be an accountant. How could he, even if he was a refugee, even if it was not easy to find work in the prefecture capital? Very few people could read in this day and age. It wasn't difficult for Gu Dajiang to find a decent job with his ability. Grandpa Yu sighed. But the shops and restaurants that need literate people won't allow him to run out of the prefectural city to look for people every other day. As long as Gu Dajiang heard any news about his family, he would rush over eagerly. Unfortunately, none of it was true. Gu Yundong clenched her fists and suddenly found it difficult to breathe. That's right. She had taken it for granted. She had always thought that she didn't have to worry about Gu Dajiang. As long as he avoided the calamity and didn't return to the old Gu family, he would be able to live well without old Gu and Patriarch Gu suppressing him. However, she ignored the fact that in Gu Dajiang's heart, nothing could compare to his wife and children. There was nothing more urgent than finding them. Seeing that she didn't say anything, Grandpa Yu thought of her clothes and the maidservant beside her and realized that her life should be good. Now that she heard that her biological father had been suffering to find them, she definitely didn't feel good. Fortunately, the hardships are over. Wait patiently for another 2 days. Dajiang will be back soon, and you and your father will meet. From now on, your family will reunite and live a good life. Gu Yundong took a deep breath and suppressed the bitterness in her heart. When she looked up again, there was already a smile on her lips. Yes, you're right. We'll be reunited soon. Sir, can I see where my father lives? Of course. Grandpa Yu was very happy. Come to my place. Perhaps your father will be back by the time we get home. Gu Yundong was also looking forward to it. She gave the money to the owner of the wonton shop and helped Grandpa Yu up. Grandpa Yu waved his hand. There's no need to help me. I'm still energetic. Chapter 445. Yu family. Grandpa Yu was overjoyed and strode forward to lead the way. However, this journey seemed to be a little far. By the time they arrived at his place, they had been walking for nearly 2 hours. Grandpa Yu looked a little embarrassed. He was used to walking, so he did not realize that there were 2 delicate young ladies following behind him. He had completely forgotten that Gu Yundong had also fled all the way here. Her stamina was not inferior to his. The Yu family's courtyard was actually very remote. It could be considered a slum in the prefectural city. The surroundings were filled with indecent people, and the road was filled with potholes. One could feel all kinds of smells when they walked into the alley. The people here were dressed in shabby clothes. When they saw Gu Yundong, who looked like a young lady from a wealthy family, everyone glanced at them. However, when they saw that it was the Yu family, some people with ill intentions could only sigh regretfully. After all, the 4 strong men of the Yu family had all fled here. They were used to seeing dead people and were not to be trifled with. Gu Yundong and Tong Xuetao pretended not to see those gazes and entered the Yu family's courtyard without looking sideways. It was really a small courtyard. It was even smaller than Aunt Kes' house where she lived back then. There was only 1 room. Then there was the small kitchen, the outhouse, and a small courtyard. Just because it was small, the rent was cheap. Fortunately, there were only 4 men. It was fine to squeeze in the same room. In the past, the conditions were even worse when they escaped. Now, it was just a matter of adding 2 bed planks to the room. Grandpa Yu let them sit and poured water for them with 2 thick clay bowls. Then he asked, Yundong, since you've settled down in the Xuanhe Prefecture, why did you come to Wanqing Prefecture this time? Gu Yundong took a sip of water. Although he did not add anything, it was still very refreshing and sweet. Grandpa Yu, you know about my mother's condition? We found a doctor to treat her. The doctor said that he was lacking an herb. Someone said that Wanqing Prefecture's Xen family had this herb, so I came over to see if they could part with it. When Grandpa Yu heard about the Xen family, he frowned. The Xen family is rich and powerful. They're not to be trifled with. They don't lack money. It's difficult to get them to give you medicine. It was difficult, but she had to try no matter how difficult it was. Grandpa Yu, do you know who has the highest status in the Xen family? Grandpa Yu thought for a moment. It should be that 2nd young master. I heard that 2nd young master married the daughter of the prefecture magistrate. That eldest young master is not in good health. He never goes out. When old master Xen goes out, he always brings that 2nd young master along. It seems that more than half of the Xen family's businesses are managed by 2nd young master. Gu Yundong pursed his lips. How can I meet that 2nd young master? Grandpa Yu was shocked. That's hard to say. You want to meet 2nd young master Xen? Ask him for the herb? It was probably impossible to buy it. Gu Yundong wanted to understand the 2nd young master first and see if she could find a breakthrough from him. As she was thinking, a voice suddenly came from outside. Father, I'm back. That person's voice was loud and clear, but he was very thin. When he entered, he was stunned when he saw the 2 girls in the house. He immediately walked out in embarrassment and patted the dust off his body before entering again. Father, this is Yundong. Don't you recognize her? Grandpa Yu asked happily. Gu Yundong also stood up and greeted, Uncle Yu, long time no see. Uncle Yu widened his eyes and looked at Gu Yundong in shock. This is Dajiang's daughter? Chapter 446. Uncle Yes help, yes. Grandpa Yu looked proud, as if Yundong was his granddaughter. Uncle Yu looked at Gu Yundong a few times, but he could not associate her with the sloppy person whose gender was unknown. It had only been half a year. They were still dressed in shabby, thin, and weak clothes, but the girl from the Gu family looked like a young lady from a rich family. This disparity simply made people unable to be jealous. However, Uncle Yu was still very happy to see her. Grandpa Yu told him the process of meeting Gu Yundong, and finally talked about the Xen residence. When he heard that Gu Yundong wanted to see second young master, Uncle Yu could not help but frown. I've seen second young master once. Last time, someone wanted to build a relationship with the Xie family and specially stopped second young master. Second young master did not even give him the corner of his eye before that person was dragged away by his guards. If you want to see him, you may have to do what? Uncle Yu glanced at Gu Yundong and coughed twice. He said in embarrassment, the second young master of the Xie family is vulnerable to beautiful women. As soon as he finished speaking, he was slapped hard by Grandpa Yu. What are you talking about? Do you want Yundong to seduce that pervert? Father, I didn't mean that. That second young master is a lustful man, but his wife isn't easy to get along with either. She's also the daughter of the Prefecture magistrate. I'm just reminding the Gu girl not to appear in front of second young master rashly, so that she can avoid trouble. The Gu girl was very good-looking now. If she went to look for second young master directly, it would be no different from sending herself to his bed. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, Uncle Yu. I understand. I'll try my best to avoid second young master." In that case, wouldn't it be even more difficult? She frowned and thought for a moment before asking, "Is there any way to enter the Xen residence?" Enter the Xen residence? This time, Grandpa Yu and Uncle Yu fell silent. After a long time, Uncle Yu thought of the basket of things on the way to escape. He gritted his teeth and said, "If you want to enter the Xen manor, I have a way." "What is it?" Gu Yundong asked hurriedly. "I know a friend who delivers vegetables to the kitchen of the Xien residence. I'll tell him. You can follow him in tomorrow morning to take a look." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes, but you can't walk around. If something happens and my friend is implicated, he won't care about you. Instead, he'll claim that he doesn't know you." Gu Yundong knew this rule. She did not want to implicate others. Besides, that person was only bringing her in because Uncle Yu had used a favor. She immediately nodded solemnly. "I understand." Uncle Yu glanced at her again and turned to leave. He was going to talk to his friend. Gu Yundong and her maidservant had been staying at the Yu residence. Unfortunately, the sky was about to turn dark, but Gu Dajiang still hadn't returned. The Yu family's grandson had returned and was shocked to see Gu Yundong. Seeing that it was getting late, Gu Yundong left the Yu family with Tong Xuetao. Since she knew that Gu Dajiang would return, she could only calm down and wait for him. When they went out, Uncle Yu sent them off. There were a few hooligans in the alley. When they saw Uncle Yu, they immediately felt very regretful. They could only watch Gu Yundong and her maidservant leave with burning eyes. The next morning, Gu Yundong followed Uncle Ye's instructions and went to wait outside the Xien residence. She was wearing a rough hemp garment and tied her hair up. Her chest was flattened, and her eyebrows were even thickened. She looked like a small worker. Chapter 447. Our Yundong. Not long after, they saw a middle-aged man and a young man pushing a cart of vegetables over. Gu Yundong hurriedly went forward. After she introduced herself, the middle-aged man silently led her forward. However, he kept a sullen expression and did not look too happy. This did not matter. Gu Yundong just had to go in and take a look. Tong Xuetao waited in the alley beside them. She was worried. Even though Gu Yundong asked her to wait for Gu Dajiang at the Yu residence, she refused. The middle-aged man pushed the vegetables into the back door of the Xien residence. When he saw the butler, he immediately put on a smile and praised him. Gu Yundong did not comment on this. It was just for the sake of living. There was still a distance from the backyard to the kitchen. Although Gu Yundong's head was lowered, the corners of his eyes kept drifting around. The Xien manor was indeed as rich and powerful as the rumors said. Not to mention the maids and servants who came and went, even the corridor they saw along the way, be it the workmanship or the carving, was very exquisite. Coupled with the trays held by the maidservant who walked past her, there were either jade bowls or jade plates on them. It was simply extravagant. Compared to them, she was simply worlds apart. She was not even qualified to be looked at. Gu Yundong's heart ached. Suddenly, Gu Yundong's ears pricked up when he heard the low voices of two maids. That person is really pitiful. He was tortured by second young madam and beaten up by second young master. Who asked him to recognize the wrong person? Sigh, poor thing. Cough, cough. The butler who was leading the way suddenly coughed heavily. The two maids were shocked and immediately shut their mouths. They lowered their heads and quickly walked away. Gu Yundong lowered her head and pretended not to hear her. Not long after, the few of them walked into the kitchen. The butler was very arrogant. He ordered Gu Yundong to move baskets of vegetables down. Put it here. Hey, be gentle. You're so clumsy. You can't even do a good job. Why are these vegetables so disheveled? They're all over the place. The chef will nag again later. Place these vegetables in order. Why are you casually placing this basket here? There are people coming and going. What if they trip? If they're holding something master wants in their hands and trip themselves over, you won't be able to compensate. Gu Yundong was speechless. She endured it. However, no matter how much she wanted to endure it, she did not even have the chance to leave the kitchen. It was really annoying. However, the worker who came with the middle-aged man thought that she was here to snatch work from him. He had disliked her since they first met and now he was even going against her. Gu Yundong felt that it was a mistake to follow the delivery man. After unloading the last basket of vegetables, she asked the butler where the toilet was. Unexpectedly, the butler glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. What toilet? You want to use the toilet in the Xian residence? Aren't you done with your work? Bear with it until you get back. Gu Yundong was speechless. She almost wanted to curse aloud. Just as she was wondering if she should find another excuse, she suddenly saw a middle-aged woman walk in valiantly. Gu Yundong took a glance and saw that although this woman was very imposing, the clothes she was wearing did not match her at all. It was as if a country woman was wearing the clothes of a noblewoman. The woman glanced around the kitchen and said, "Where's our Yundong's bird's nest? Is it ready?" Chapter 448. Gu Dajiang's voice. Gu Yundong widened her eyes and looked at the woman in shock. She almost responded when someone called her name. Fortunately, she immediately realized that the woman was not referring to her. The old woman in the kitchen quickly brought over a pot of bird's nest and smiled brightly. "It's here. It was stewed early in the morning. Hurry up and send it to concubine Gu." Gu Yundong was speechless. She almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her surname was Gu, and her name was also Yundong? Not only did they have the same given name, but they also had the same surname. The woman snorted coldly. "Our Yundong is the person second young master loves the most now. All of you are snobs. You don't take her seriously at all. I just asked you to stew the bird's nest. You've been delaying for so long, and you want me to come over personally to get it. If there's a next time, I'll sell all of you." With that, she carried the bird's nest and walked away arrogantly. As soon as she disappeared, the few old women in the kitchen spat at her back. "You really think too highly of yourself. Your daughter is just a concubine, and you still think she's a proper master? How shameless. Just wait. Second young mistress is not free yet. When she's free, who knows how long concubine Gu will be able to hold the position." Seeing how brazen they were and how they dared to complain in front of the delivery man, it was obvious that they did not take concubine Gu and her mother seriously. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Hearing concubine Gu made her feel uncomfortable all over. The steward had just finished speaking to the middle-aged man and let them leave. It was too late for Gu Yundong to find an opportunity to leave. She could only frown and leave the kitchen in defeat. However, she learned that the second young master of the Xen family had taken in a new concubine who was her namesake. Forget it, forget it. That's not important. They just had the same name. How could she not allow it? Second young master seemed to dote on this concubine quite a lot now. Perhaps she could start from her. Gu Yundong thought as she followed the middle-aged man out of the back door of the Xen residence. As soon as he came out, the middle-aged man said to Gu Yundong, "All right, I've done what brother you asked of me. I've returned the favor I owed him. That's all. You don't have to follow me anymore." Gu Yundong nodded. "Thank you. No need." The middle-aged man asked the worker beside him to push the empty cart away. When the worker saw that Gu Yundong was not fighting with him for the job, he immediately became happy. Before he left, he even gave her a smile. Gu Yundong sighed and walked towards the alley. Tong Xuetao was still there. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, she suddenly saw a group of people gathered there, pointing and talking about something. Gu Yundong frowned. Tong Xuetao had already seen her and hurried over. "Miss, you're out? How are you? Are you all right?" She looked Gu Yundong up and down nervously. Tong Xuetao was also wearing men's clothes. After all, she had wanted to follow them in at the beginning. Unfortunately, her plan had failed before she could say it. Gu Yundong shook her head and pointed at the crowd. "What happened there? I think someone was thrown out by the servants of the Xue family just now. It's said that he was beaten. It's quite serious." Gu Yundong suddenly recalled what the two maids had said. He must have been beaten up by the second young master of the Xue family, right? She had no intention of meddling in other people's business. She brought Tong Xuetao and walked straight through the crowd. However, just as she passed by that person, a faint voice suddenly sounded in her ear. "Yundong." Chapter 449. Finally meeting Gu Dajiang. Gu Yundong's ears were sharp. When she heard these two words, her body stiffened. She suddenly turned her head to look at the person lying on the ground. With someone blocking her way, she immediately pulled that person away roughly. Then, she squatted down and brushed away the hair that covered half of that person's face. In the next moment, when she saw the true appearance of the man on the ground, her hands began to tremble violently. "Miss, what's wrong?" Tong Xuetao saw that something was wrong with her and hurriedly asked in a low voice. Gu Yundong's throat was tight and she could not even make a sound. She suddenly grabbed her trembling right wrist and pressed it against the man's neck with great difficulty. She felt that the pulse under her fingers was still strong. Only then did she force herself to calm down. She struggled to help the man up. The onlookers quickly advised, "Little brother, this is someone thrown out by the Xue family. Don't be a busybody, lest you get into trouble." Gu Yundong suddenly raised her head and glared fiercely at that person. Her throat rolled and she finally spat out a cold word. "Scram. You." That person tried to persuade her out of goodwill but was scolded instead. He was instantly annoyed, but when he saw Gu Yundong's fierce and cold expression, he was a little terrified and left dejectedly with his head lowered. Gu Yundong lowered her head again and said to Tong Xuetao, "Come, be careful. Carry him back to the inn first." "Oh, okay, Mississippi." Tong Xuetao was strong. She hurriedly squatted down and carefully helped the man onto her back. She did not dare to use too much strength. She tried her best to bend over to make the unconscious person on her back feel more comfortable. After walking for a while, Tong Xuetao asked, "Miss, who is this?" Gu Yundong's nerves were still tense. The corners of her mouth were tightly pursed, and bloodlust surged in her eyes. She took a long time to answer Tong Xuetao, but her voice was dry and hoarse. "He's my father." Tong Xuetao's eyes widened in shock. Yes, it's old master?" "Yes." Gu Yundong never expected to see Gu Dajiang under such circumstances. The man leaning on Tong Xuetao's back was extremely thin. His image was even worse than what Grandpa Yu had said about Gu Dajiang. He had been thrown out by the Xue family and beaten up like this. Gu Yundong's face was ashen, and she clenched her fists tightly. The three of them quickly arrived at the inn. The waiter still remembered Gu Yundong's attire before she went out today. At that time, he found it strange, but this was the guest's privacy, so he did not ask further. However, he had a deep impression of it. Hence, when he saw her return with an unconscious person on her back, he quickly went up to her. "Miss, what's wrong? Please help me find a doctor." Gu Yundong gave the waiter a piece of silver and helped Gu Dajiang upstairs. The door opened and the two of them carefully placed the man on the bed. Perhaps because it affected his wound, Gu Dajiang couldn't help but groan as he lay on the bed. His brows were furrowed. "Be gentle," Gu Yundong said hurriedly. Seeing his uncomfortable expression, she felt helpless for the first time. She didn't know how to move her fingers to minimize Gu Dajiang's pain. Fortunately, the waiter immediately brought the doctor over. This was the doctor from the nearest medical center. His medical skills were quite brilliant. The moment he entered, he saw Gu Dajiang covered in blood. He frowned and instructed Gu Yundong, "Go get a basin of hot water first." Chapter 450. The scarred Gu Dajiang Tong Xue Tao quickly turned around to get hot water. Only then did Dr. Yu carefully check the wounds on Gu Dajiang's body. His clothes had been removed by the scissors, so Gu Yundong could not look at him anymore. She took a deep breath and turned around. The waiter stayed to help. As he followed the doctor's instructions, he whispered, "Oh my God, why is he like this? It's so bloody. Will he be unable to move his lower body in the future? Oh my God, why is there such a big wound on his shoulder? Is it because he was scalded? It's all blistered. No, who did this? This is too inhumane. Did his finger break from someone stepping on it?" Gu Yundong's back was facing the bed. The more she listened, the uglier her expression became. The veins on the back of her hand throbbed, and her eyes were cold. Dr. Yu could not help but reprimand him. "Shut up. What are you shouting for? Give me the scissors." The waiter didn't dare to speak. He didn't know who the person on the bed was, but it didn't seem to have much to do with that girl, right? After all, this person was thin and had a rough face. He looked like one of those laborers. There was no telling who this guy had offended, but he was probably saved by Miss Gu out of kindness. Tong Xue Tao brought hot water over. Seeing that Miss' expression was not right, she quickly helped her sit down and said softly, "Miss, don't worry. Old master will be fine." Gu Yundong closed his eyes slightly. "I know." Faint movements came from behind. The waiter stopped making a fuss and only asked some questions occasionally. But these words still reached Gu Yundong's ears, and her fingers tightened. After a long time, he heard Dr. Yes' voice. "Mississippi." He had heard the waiter call her Mississippi. "This patient's injuries are a little serious. They'll treat him for the time being, but the medicine to be used later is probably not cheap. You, here?" Gu Yundong took out a banknote. "Give him the best medicine to minimize his pain. Don't leave any future troubles. If you need anything, just tell me." "I sure." Seeing that she did not look very well dressed, Dr. Yu was a little worried before. When he saw that she had taken out 100 taels of silver, he hurriedly agreed. The waiter could not help but widen his eyes. Wasn't this someone she had casually saved on the way? Wasn't this too generous? The doctor had already walked to the table. He took a brush and paper and wrote down the prescription. Then he handed it to the waiter. "Please make a trip to our family's medical center to get these medicine." The waiter quickly took it and agreed happily. He was smart and knew that this girl seemed to value the man on the bed. If he helped her run more errands, he would definitely be rewarded. After the waiter left, Dr. Yu washed his hands and walked to her side to tell her about Gu Dajiang's condition. There are 3 most serious injuries on the patient's body. One of them is a burn on his shoulder. It should have been scalded by boiling water. This is fine. I've squeezed out the mucus in the bubble. I'll apply the ointment later and it'll be fine when new skin grows in the future. Gu Yundong exhaled slowly and nodded slightly. The second was when he was hit by a heavy object on the fingers of his left hand. 2 of the bones in his fingers were broken. As soon as Dr. Yu finished speaking, Tong Xue Tao covered her mouth and gasped. Dr. Yu looked up at her and continued to say to Gu Yundong, who had a tense expression, "I'll use a splint to fixate the fingers. He has to recuperate slowly. It's best not to carry heavy objects in the future." Chapter 451. Missed something. The third injury is the injury on his back. Dr. Yu sighed. This is the most serious. The person who hit him is not skilled. His external injuries are serious, and his internal injuries are not easy either. Internal injuries? Gu Yundong immediately thought of the bottle of internal injuries medicine that Xiao Qingyuan had given her. She quickly searched her sleeve and actually took out the small porcelain bottle from her space. She said to Dr. Yu, "This is medicine for internal injuries. Take a look and see if it will conflict with the medicine you prescribed. Dr. Yu was stunned for a moment. He poured out a pill and sniffed it. Then he scratched it with his nail and tasted a bit. After a while, his eyes lit up and he hurriedly nodded. It's useful. They'll feed him one now. He took the medicine and quickly crushed it. He mixed it with water and fed it to Gu Dajiang. Seeing that he had consciously swallowed it, the doctor heaved a sigh of relief and came back to say, "You also need to pay more attention to his external injuries. This wound is prone to festering pus, and it may cause a fever. That's very dangerous." Gu Yundong knew that if the wound was not treated properly, it was easy to get inflammation and infection, especially in this weather. One could get a fever if they were not careful. In this era, it was very easy to lose one's life if one had a fever. Dr. Yu told her all the things she needed to pay attention to. At this moment, the waiter returned with the medicine. He first took the ointment and applied it on Gu Dajiang before getting the waiter to go to the kitchen to boil the herbs. By the time he was done, several hours had passed. Dr. Yu helped Gu Dajiang put on his clothes before getting up to wipe his sweat. He said, "It's up to him now. If there's anything wrong, get someone to look for me. If his condition improves, he'll come over tomorrow to change his medicine." "Thank you, Dr. Yu." Gu Yundong sent him out gratefully. The waiter also went downstairs smartly. After a while, he brought the food over. "Miss, it's already late. You should eat lunch first. Put it down. It's been hard on you today. You should eat too." "It's not hard. I'll go out first. Miss, enjoy your meal. If you have any instructions, feel free to call me." He left the room and closed the door gently. "Miss, let's eat first," Tong Shuetao called her softly. It was rare for her to speak softly, because Miss seemed to be in a bad mood, and Master's condition was not optimistic. Gu Yundong was not in the mood to eat. She let Tong Shuetao eat first, but she walked to the bed and sat there looking at the unconscious Gu Dajiang. She suppressed the anger in her heart and slowly closed her eyes. After a long time, she looked at the person on the bed again. Gu Dajiang was very thin. He had originally been very thin, but he wasn't as haggard as he was now. He looked like he had aged a few years. She thought that she was different from Gu Dajiang. In her heart, Gu Dajiang was only someone who existed in her memories. If not for Madame Yang and the others, she would not have cared about his life at all. To her, Gu Dajiang was just a familiar stranger. Later on, after spending time with her mother, Yun Shu, and Yunke, Gu Yundong's heart gradually warmed. Gu Dajiang's presence in her memory was so strong. Therefore, in her memories, Gu Dajiang's image gradually became three-dimensional in her mind. He became flesh and blood and she had feelings for him. Perhaps it was because she remembered that Gu Dajiang was too capable that she felt that even if he was alone, he would still lead a good life. At least, it would be much better than her bringing up her mother and siblings. He might even have already started a big business. However, she had overlooked the most important point. Chapter 452, Gu Dajiang Awakens. Gu Dajiang valued relationships. He valued his family more than himself. In his heart, his wife was ignorant of the world. His eldest daughter was sentimental, and his youngest son and daughter were too young. How could such a family of 4 survive safely in the wilderness surrounded by jackals, tigers, and leopards? Of course, he had the ability to do something, but he couldn't wait. He was afraid that if he was a little slower, he might not be able to find his wife and children again. Perhaps in Gu Dajiang's heart, he didn't dare to hope that his 4 family members were all alive. He could only think of finding as many as possible. He could not slow down. Therefore, as Grandpa Yu had said, other than the money for food, he had used all the money to find his wife and children. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth were straight. At this moment, she finally felt the deep love Gu Dajiang gave her. "Miss, don't worry. Old Master will definitely be fine. Let's use the best medicine." Tong Shuetao had already finished eating. She turned around and saw that Miss was still sitting there motionless, as if she had suffered a huge blow. For a moment, she felt a little sad and guilty. If she had gone over to bring Old Master back to find a doctor the moment he was thrown out by the Xan family, Would old master's injuries not have become so serious? It was all the Xie family's fault. They had gone too far. What right did they have to beat old master into such a state? Miss, eat something first. After you're full, you'll have the strength to take care of master when he wakes up, right? Gu Yundong nodded slightly and reached out to touch Gu Dajiang's forehead. Fortunately, he did not have a fever. Only then did she sit at the table and eat. Tong Shuetao diligently fetched hot water again. Seeing that Gu Dajiang's face was covered in sweat, she carefully wiped it for him. As Gu Yundong was eating, she suddenly thought of something. Shuetao, go to the Yu residence later. We agreed yesterday that we would go to the Yu residence when we came out of the Xian residence. It's already this hour. I'm afraid Grandpa you will be worried about us. Tong Shuetao also thought of this and suddenly slapped her head. I forgot too. Alright, I'll go over immediately. By the way, tell Grandpa you that my father has been found. After a pause, she added, don't say anything about him being injured. Understood, Mississippi. After Tong Shuetao left, only Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang were left in the room. She twisted the handkerchief again and wiped Gu Dajiang's face. Unexpectedly, just as she approached, the person in front of her suddenly opened her eyes. Gu Yundong was stunned. Gu Dajiang was also stunned. He looked at Gu Yundong with uncertainty. After a long while, he said hoarsely, Yundong? It's me. Gu Dajiang smiled. Why are you wearing men's clothes today? Your eyebrows have become so thick. I almost didn't recognize you. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and asked hesitantly, Are you awake? Gu Dajiang reached out his hand and realized that he was lying on his stomach. His body was in great pain. A sharp pain spread to his head, and cold sweat dripped down. Gu Dajiang grunted and knocked his head against the soft pillow again before closing his eyes. Gu Yundong panicked. She blurted out the name that she wanted to call him and yet had been stuck in her throat. Father, did you pull on your wound? Where does it hurt? Gu Dajiang's eyes widened as he looked at her in shock. Yundong. Chapter 453, Father and Daughter Reunion. It's me, Dad. Gu Dajiang gasped. I'm not dreaming? As he spoke, he grabbed Gu Yundong's hand with great force. He stared at Gu Yundong, afraid that he would blink and the person in front of him would suddenly disappear again. Gu Yundong slowly squatted down and let him hold her hand. He smiled and said, Yes, you're not dreaming. Father, I'm in front of you. I'm fine. You found me. Gu Dajiang's eyes widened as he listened to her seriously. His lips trembled slightly, and his hand that was holding her trembled slightly too. Slowly, this trembling became more and more intense, just like the torrential emotions in his heart. Gu Yundong gently put her other hand on it and said gently, Father, do you hurt anywhere? You're injured. The doctor said that you can't move around. Gu Dajiang finally blinked, but his voice was hoarse. Yundong, is it really you? Yeah. It's really you? It's me. It's true. It's actually true. Dad. Gu Dajiang suddenly grinned. In the next moment, tears flowed out and slowly slid down his face to the pillow. Dad. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just happy. I'm happy. His voice was choked with emotion. After searching for so long, he was almost in despair. When the planks of the Xen family hit him and he was thrown out on his last breath, the only regret in his heart was that he could not find his wife and children. He did not know if they were still alive or if they were waiting for him in heaven. He did not expect his daughter to be by his side the moment he woke up. He was satisfied. His wounds didn't hurt at all. He was glad. Had never been so glad. Gu Yundong quickly wiped his tears with a handkerchief. The corners of her eyes could not help but tear up. Her eyes turned red. I'm happy too. Gu Dajiang grinned like a child. But in the next moment he suddenly raised his head slightly and looked behind Gu Yundong. However, there was no one there. His hand could not help but tremble slightly. He wanted to speak, but he did not know how to. Gu Yundong quickly knew who he was looking for. She smiled and said, Mother and Yunshu and Yunka are all fine. Gu Dajiang was stunned. His gaze landed on her again. Gu Yundong continued, "Back then, I saw that the Qingan Prefecture was in chaos. I was afraid that I could not protect my mother and younger siblings, so I brought them to the Xuanhe Prefecture. Now, they have settled down in Yongfu village under the Xuanhe Prefecture. They are all at home, waiting for us to return." After a pause, she said, "I'm sorry, father. I didn't fulfill my promise to you." "No, you did the right thing. You did the right thing." Gu Dajiang's voice became lighter. Knowing that his family was safe, he seemed to be in high spirits. "There's nothing more important than your safety. I didn't think it through back then. I didn't expect the city gate of Qingan Prefecture to be tightly shut, causing chaos. What about you?" Gu Yundong did not want him to continue blaming himself. She changed the topic and asked, "Why did father come to Wanqing Prefecture?" "Actually, I went to Qingan Prefecture to look for you. I even met Bao Chunhua and his wife. They said that they had seen you and saw you leave the city gate with their own eyes. Unfortunately, they didn't know where you went after you left. I even went." She paused and did not tell him that she had been to Gu village. She would take it slow. So many things had happened in Gu village. She had to tell her father, but she did not want to say it yet. Chapter 454. That woman should die. Gu Dajiang was stunned. He really didn't expect her to have been to Qingan Prefecture. He pursed his lips and frowned. "Back then, I thought that you would wait for me in Qingan Prefecture, so I kept looking for you there. Later on," he lowered his voice, "I bumped into your aunt later." "Gu Chuyue?" Gu Yundong was flabbergasted. "Isn't she dead?" "Dead?" Gu Dajiang frowned. "When did she die?" "She was still alive when I met her." Although he and Gu Chuyue were siblings, their relationship was really weak. It could even be said that they had become enemies. From his tone, it was obvious. "I met my uncle. He said so." However, this was not important. "What happened after you met my aunt?" "She said that you came to Wanqing Prefecture. Actually, I didn't believe her at first." However, Gu Dajiang later asked around. There were indeed a few people who told him that they had met such a family that had gone to Wanqing Prefecture before the Qingan Prefecture fell into chaos. That was why he came to Wanqing Prefecture. Later on, he met the Yu family. He didn't expect the Yu family to receive Yundong's help. Even the Yu family said that they were coming this way. That was why Gu Dajiang had been looking for them in Wanqing Prefecture for more than half a year. Gu Yundong sighed inwardly. It was really a freak combination of factors. They missed each other just like that. If she had gone to Wanqing Prefecture back then, wouldn't they have met sooner? However, Gu Chuyue was the one who deserved to die. Others might have really seen them moving this way, but Gu Chuyue knew very well back then. She had even asked Fu Ming to bring Master Qian to chase after them and wanted to sell her nephew and niece. Anger rose in Gu Yundong's heart. It would be best if Gu Chuyue was dead. If she was not, Gu Yundong would kill her. She snorted coldly. Seeing the fatigue flash across Gu Dajiang's face, she knew that she had said too much. She would talk about this slowly in the future. He was still injured and should be resting. She had neglected it. "Father, you're still injured. It's more important to recover first. Now that we're reunited, there's plenty of time to talk in the future. I still have many things to tell you." "Okay." He had found his wife and children, so he naturally had to live well. Recovering from his injuries was most important. He could not go back to see his wife and children like this. "By the way, eat something first. I've been asking the waiter to prepare sweet porridge." "Father, fill your stomach first. Then, drink the medicine prescribed by the doctor before you rest." As she spoke, she hurriedly opened the door and let the waiter bring the warm porridge over. Gu Dajiang looked at Gu Yundong's back and smiled. Gu Yundong fed him small bites. It was not easy for him to finish it. After drinking the medicine, he really wanted to sleep. She reached out and adjusted Gu Dajiang's pillow. His back was injured, so he could only lie on his stomach or sideways. He couldn't move too much, or it was easy to pull at his wound. Gu Dajiang was really tired and his body hurt a lot. He actually couldn't bear to close his eyes. He wanted to see his daughter more. However, he really couldn't take it anymore. As soon as he closed his eyes, he quickly fell asleep. Tong Xuetao only returned when the sky was about to turn dark. When she heard that Gu Dajiang had woken up, she immediately became happy. "Miss, go and rest. I'll guard master. You keep watch for the first half of the night. I'll do it for the second." "All right." Gu Yundong went to the room next door to rest, but she did not sleep well. She was always worried that something would happen to Gu Dajiang. Before midnight, she came over to replace Tong Xuetao. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. Gu Dajiang didn't have a fever, and his injuries were recovering. Chapter 455. Yundong is really good looking. After dawn, Dr. Yu came over again. After showing it to Gu Dajiang, he heaved a sigh of relief. "I'll change his bandage first. Continue taking the medicine I prescribed yesterday." "Thank you, Dr. Yu." Gu Dajiang was in a deep sleep, but he was still woken up by the pain of changing the bandage. When Dr. Yu saw him open his eyes, he smiled kindly. "How do you feel? Does it hurt anywhere? Do you feel choked or difficult to breathe?" Gu Dajiang quickly realized his identity. "No, other than the pain in my wound, everything else is fine." With that, he hurriedly went to look for Gu Yundong. When he saw that she was still there, he heaved a sigh of relief. How did his daughter become so good-looking? She had washed off her thick eyebrows from yesterday and changed her clothes. These clothes looked expensive and her face was rosy. She was actually more beautiful than before. After Dr. Yu changed the bandage and gave some instructions, he left. Gu Yundong walked to the edge of the bed and sat down. Seeing that Gu Dajiang was staring at her, she could not help but find it strange. "Father, what are you looking at?" Gu Dajiang paused and smiled. "Yundong is really good-looking." Gu Yundong immediately felt a little embarrassed. How can a father praise his daughter like that? Father is telling the truth. He looked very proud. Unfortunately, he was injured and couldn't even lift his head. At the thought of his injury, Gu Yundong could not help but frown. "Father, why did the Xen family hit you so ruthlessly? They almost killed you." As she asked this question, Gu Yundong's face was instantly filled with anger and a hint of killing intent. She didn't know how her father had offended the Xen family, but with her father's personality, he definitely wouldn't offend them to the point of getting himself killed. She wasn't going to let this go. Gu Dajiang lowered his eyes slightly and thought of everything in the Xen residence. He slowly closed his eyes. After a while, he looked up and smiled. "It's nothing. Am I not fine? It's over. If father doesn't want to tell me, I'll go to the Xen family to ask myself." "Yundong." Gu Yundong pursed her lips tightly and looked at him firmly. Gu Dajiang smiled bitterly. "How did you become so stubborn?" "Father, go ahead." Gu Dajiang sighed secretly and said in a low voice, "2 days ago, I heard that the second young master of the Xen family wants to take in a concubine. That concubine's surname is Gu and her name is Gu Yundong." Gu Yundong's body suddenly froze. The words of the woman she had heard when she had disguised herself and sneaked into the kitchen of the Xen residence flashed across her mind. Yes, there was a concubine with the same name as hers in the Xen manor. Father thought, it was me? No wonder. No wonder he was unwilling to say it just now. Was he afraid that she would blame herself? Gu Dajiang nodded. "I heard that concubine Gu is from the countryside and fled here. She's 15 or 16 years old and is also good-looking. Moreover, she wasn't willing to be a concubine and was forcefully taken over by second young master. To get her, they even captured her mother and threatened her with her mother's life. All the signs indicated that this was most likely his daughter and wife." Gu Dajiang panicked. It wasn't so easy for him to find out anything else. However, at this moment his wife and daughter were forced to become concubines and had no way of asking for help. He could not sit still. Gu Dajiang tried his best to sneak into the Xen residence. He was capable. It was not easy to enter the Xen family, but he found his way in. However, that was not the case at all. Chapter 456. Those three bastards. That person called Gu Yundong was indeed unwilling at first, but her mother was not captured by the second young master. Her mother voluntarily helped the second young master trick her daughter into coming in. Moreover, concubine Gu had only been in the Xen residence for a day, but she was already bewitched by the riches inside and willingly became the concubine of the second young master of the Xen residence. Gu Dajiang did not find out about this at first. As a complete stranger, he anxiously asked around for Gu Yundong's residence. After hiding in the Xen residence for a day, he was discovered. As it happened, it was the wife of the second young master of the Xen family, who was the daughter of the current prefecture magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture. When she saw Gu Dajiang, she also received news that this person was getting close to concubine Gu. Second young madam smiled. After sizing Gu Dajiang up, she suspected his relationship with concubine Gu. I heard that concubine Gu has a father. You're so concerned about her. Could you be her father? Gu Dajiang immediately denied it. Seeing this, second young madam became even more certain. Why are you nervous? Are you afraid that he'll use you to threaten concubine Gu? Gu Dajiang refused to admit it even more badly. However, regardless of whether second young madam was really certain or just in a bad mood, she said, if you admit your relationship with concubine Gu, he'll let you go. If you don't admit it, you're a thief who barged into my Xien manor. When she said this, her eyes turned sharp. She directly said to the guard of the Xen family, break his fingers. This is the price for daring to break into the Xen residence. Gu Dajiang didn't even have time to explain before his fingers were pressed to the ground. The guard knocked him over with a stick. He fell back in pain, but a maid behind him poured a hot teapot on him. In an instant, he was so hot that his entire body convulsed and his shoulders immediately blistered. However, his torture was not over yet. Someone had told concubine Gu. Concubine Gu brought second young master over and said that second young madam had deliberately found someone to impersonate her father to ruin her reputation. Only then did Gu Dajiang realize that he had mistaken her for someone else. Concubine Gu wasn't his daughter. Although her family had fled here, they had fled here when their ancestors were still alive. Second young master naturally could not reprimand second young madam. He was already in the wrong for taking a concubine. However, concubine Gu was his new favorite and she was still new. He had to stand up for her, right? Hence, he pushed all the blame to Gu Dajiang. He said that the man had pretended to be concubine Gu's father to enter the residence and swindle others, which was simply detestable. He got the guards to beat him up 20 times. Those people only threw him out when he was on the verge of death. Gu Yundong trembled when she heard that. These bastards did not care about human lives at all. One was to vent her anger. One was to trample on others in order to fight for favor. One was trying to pacify his wife and please his concubine for the sake of having two women. That was why they could casually take her father's life. Gu Yundong quickly lowered her head to prevent her father from seeing the fierceness in her eyes. I'm fine. Look, if not for this, I wouldn't have been able to see you, right? Gu Dajiang comforted her. Gu Yundong looked up and forced a smile. No, without this, she would have been able to see Gu Dajiang safe and sound in the Yu family, not the father who was on the verge of death and was sweating from the pain. Gu Yundong took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. At this moment, Tong Xuetao entered the house. She leaned close to Gu Yundong's ear nervously and said, Miss, something seems to have happened. Chapter 457. Are they looking for us? Gu Dajiang was stunned when he saw Tong Xuetao. And what did she call Yundong just now? Miss? He looked at the two of them in shock. Only then did Tong Xuetao realize that Gu Dajiang had woken up. She hurriedly said respectfully, Master? Gu Dajiang was speechless. Gu Yundong asked Tong Xuetao, what happened? The latter suddenly reacted. She glanced at Gu Dajiang and lowered her voice even more. Only Gu Yundong could hear her. Young miss, I was at the entrance of the inn just now and saw the second young master of the Xen family coming over aggressively with 2 guards. Do you think he knows that we brought old master back and is here to settle the score? Gu Yundong stood up. I'll go out and take a look. Take care of my father. Yes, my lady. Gu Yundong opened the door and saw a rich man's son entering the inn with 2 guards. He was walking upstairs. Why would the second young master of the Xen family be so free? He even intervened when someone they didn't care about had been saved, and even personally brought people to settle the score? Gu Yundong felt that it was unlikely. As expected, although the young master came up, he turned around and walked in another direction. Soon, the innermost room in the corridor was opened by a middle-aged man, who respectfully invited him in. As for the 2 guards at the back, they stopped at the door and stood outside dutifully. Before the middle-aged man closed the door, he said to the waiter outside, "Go make a pot of good tea." Yes. The waiter immediately turned around and went downstairs. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and immediately turned to enter the room beside her. She found the coarse linen clothes she had worn yesterday and quickly changed. Then, she casually stuffed her hair into her hat. Her eyebrows were thick and her face was dark. Finally, he changed his shoes and came out. Coincidentally, the waiter had just gone upstairs. Gu Yundong quickly took out a gun from her space. It was a toy gun. Because it was too vivid, Gu Yundong used it to scare people. After all, in the apocalypse, all kinds of demons and ghosts had appeared after losing their humanity. When they saw good-looking women, they felt that they were easy to bully. Gu Yundong had scared many people away with this toy gun. The bullet of this gun was round like a sugar ball. It would not hurt anyone, but it would definitely hurt the victim when shot from the muzzle. She aimed at the waiter's knee and fired 2 shots. The waiter bent his knees and almost threw the tray in his hand. Gu Yundong was responsive and quickly supported him with one hand and the tray with the other. She asked in a low voice, "Are you all right?" The waiter gasped and looked up. "Miss Gu. Why you dressed like this again? I have something to do outside. It's more convenient to dress like this." Gu Yundong helped her up and asked, "How are you?" "I don't know why, but my legs seem to have been hit by something." The waiter turned his head and looked, but he didn't find any stones. "It hurts a little. I think you should sit over there and rest first." But, he glanced awkwardly at the tray in his hand. Gu Yundong smiled. "I'll send it to you." "Huh?" The waiter was surprised. "Aren't you going out?" "I don't have anything urgent to do. I'm just delivering tea. I'll be done soon." "Which room should I send it to?" As Gu Yundong spoke, she had already accepted the tray. Chapter 458. Secret recording. The waiter subconsciously pointed to the innermost room. Gu Yundong nodded. "Alright, I'll do it. You've been helping me run errands for the past 2 days. Take it as my thanks." Before anyone could react, she had already left with the tray. Only then did the waiter reach out and rub the bend of his leg. Then he stood up straight and walked for a while. It didn't hurt anymore?" He let out a sigh of relief and immediately thought about it. That's not right. He was so diligent in running errands for Miss Gu because he wanted a bonus. Could it be that Miss Gu was helping him deliver tea because she didn't want to pay him? The waiter cursed and wanted to change back. But when he walked over, he realized that it was too late. Gu Yundong had already knocked on the door and entered in a flash. There were only 2 people in the room. One was a young master. He was the second young master of the Xien family, Zhiyuan. Opposite him was a middle-aged man. No one knew who he was. The 2 of them stopped talking when they saw her enter. Zhiyuan even stood up and instructed the 2 guards to remind him to buy something when they returned. After Gu Yundong put down the teapot and poured a cup for each of them, the middle-aged man said, "All right, you can leave." "All right, please enjoy," Gu Yundong said in a rough voice and turned to leave. Unbeknownst to anyone, she had placed a recording pen in the compartment under the table and covered it with a tablecloth before leaving. The phone she used to scare Peng Zhongfei last time was almost out of battery. It was better not to take it out. Moreover, the phone was too big of a target and would be easily discovered. The recording pen was small, so it was easier to hide. Gu Yundong held the tray and left the room respectfully with her back arched. It was only when she walked out of the 2 guards' sight that she straightened her back. Unexpectedly, before she could go downstairs, she saw the waiter walking over anxiously. Miss Gu, actually, you don't have to help me. You're a guest of the inn. How can I tire you out? Besides, it's only right for me to run errands for you. You even rewarded me last time. Gu Yundong was so angry that she wanted to laugh. She threw the tray to him. Alright, it's just a small matter. Look at how nervous you are. I won't tell your shopkeeper that you're lazy. The waiter wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled awkwardly. Gu Yundong gave him a piece of silver. Let me ask you something else. The waiter's eyes suddenly lit up and he heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Miss Gu still needed him. It seemed that she was really kind just now. She was indeed a beautiful and kind girl. He immediately patted his chest and said, Miss, if you want to know anything, feel free to ask. I want to ask, where is the nearest fair brokerage? Miss, do you want to buy servants? Yes. This was not a problem. The waiter quickly told Gu Yundong about the two most reputable brokers in the vicinity. So you're dressed like this to buy someone from the brokerage. That's good. You don't look like you'll be easily scammed. If she dressed like a young lady from a rich family, those people in the brokerage would definitely treat her as an ignorant girl. Gu Yundong was speechless. She nodded affirmatively. Yes. As she spoke, someone called for the waiter. He quickly turned around and went downstairs. Only then did Gu Yundong shake her head and push open Gu Dajiang's room. Unexpectedly, the moment she entered, she saw Gu Dajiang and Tong Xuetao looking at each other in silence. Chapter 459. Fatherly love. Gu Yundong closed the door and asked curiously, What's wrong? Tong Xuetao shrank her neck and looked a little guilty. On the other hand, Gu Dajiang turned to look at his daughter and saw that she was wearing the same clothes as yesterday. Although he felt strange, he didn't ask further. However, he glanced at Tong Xuetao and said, This? Miss Tong said that she's the maidservant you bought? Her entire family is servants of the Gu family? At this moment, Gu Dajiang still didn't know that there were 6 people in the Tong family. He thought that it was just her parents and her. Gu Yundong looked at Tong Xuetao, who laughed dryly. I thought Miss had spoken to Master, so Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. She had thought that something was up. Father, I have something to tell you too. I plan to buy 2 more servants to take care of you. She sat beside Gu Dajiang. Seeing that he was in good spirits, she couldn't help but smile. Gu Dajiang was stunned. He wanted to shake his head, but he realized that it was inconvenient. He hurriedly said, No need, no need. Why would I need servants? Father, you're injured now. Someone has to take care of you. She and Tong Xuetao were both women, so it was inconvenient for them to wipe his body. Previously, she had asked the waiter to help, but he was already very busy. Yesterday, he had helped Dr. Yu for most of the day and was even scolded by the shopkeeper. If it weren't for the silver bonus, he probably wouldn't have treated her well today. Gu Dajiang also reacted. He did need help in this state. Previously, it was Dr. Yu who had brought him the chamber pot for him to relieve himself. Embarrassment flashed across his face. He agreed after all, but 1 is enough. I don't need 2. It'll be better soon. Don't waste money. Gu Yundong squatted down. Father, I'm doing a small business now. I have money. Although it's not much, it's enough to buy 2 servants. Yes, compared to the Xian residents, she was still very poor. However, Gu Dajiang had a serious expression. Just 1. It's not easy to do small business now. Save the silver as your dowry in the future. His daughter was already 15 years old. She would be of marriageable age soon. When the time came, it would be time to discuss marriage. In the past, when he was in the old Gu family, he was worried that his father and stepmother would cause trouble and that Yundong would not be able to find a good husband. Now that he had left the place and Yundong was so good, she would definitely be very happy in the future. Thinking of this, Gu Dajiang couldn't help but feel relieved. Seeing how insistent he was, Gu Yundong had no choice but to agree. Father, rest first. He'll be back soon. Be careful. When you look at people, don't judge them by their appearance. You have to see if they're honest. Those brokers are very smart. We won't buy any if the price is high. We can hire people too. Also, remember to buy just one. When Gu Yundong went out, she could still hear his worried reminders. Her heart was warm and sour. This was the love of an old father. Even though he knew that she already started her own small business, even though he knew that she could bring his mother and siblings all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture, in his heart, she was still a child who had not grown up. No matter what she did, he would always be worried. Although Madame Yang was her mother, her situation was special. She looked more like her child. Now, in front of Gu Dajiang, she was the daughter who needed his care, even though he was lying in bed and couldn't do anything. Gu Yundong's smile widened. Looking at the sky outside, it seemed to be filled with joy from head to toe. Chapter 460. Xue Rong. When they arrived at the brokerage, Gu Yundong looked for the broker that the waiter had introduced. Hearing that she only planned to buy one person, the broker was still smiling and her attitude was exceptionally enthusiastic. "Miss, are you planning to buy a man or a woman? What's the age requirement? Is there any taboo?" Gu Yundong did not speak in a rough voice. It was too tiring. She had changed into men's clothes purely to deliver tea to the second young master of the Xue family. Now that she spoke, her voice was delicate and tender. The broker immediately recognized her gender. Gu Yundong sat in the reception room and took a sip of tea before saying, "I want a man. He must be agile, honest, and strong. There's no taboo." "All right, wait a moment, Mississippi." The broker smiled and went out. After a while, she brought a row of men in. This prefectural city was different from the county city. There were many people. Gu Yundong raised her head and listened to the broker's introduction. This one used to be a stable driver. The previous owner thought that his driving was unsteady, so he sold him. This person is selling himself. He escaped from the Yongning Prefecture previously and was arranged to live in a remote village when he settled down. He really can't survive. The broker described the experiences one by one, but Gu Yundong was not satisfied with them all. She was looking for someone to take care of Gu Dajiang's recuperation. Most men were careless, especially these people. Although they looked honest, they were also clumsy. Not only would they not do their job well, but they would also worsen her father's condition. Seeing that she was dissatisfied, the broker immediately waved her hand and let these people leave. "Miss, what are you planning to do with the servant?" "To take care of a patient." After thinking for a while, Gu Yundong added, "It's best if they have such an experience or used to be an apprentice in the medical hall and pharmacy. Do you have any?" The broker was stunned for a moment. She thought for a moment and said, "There is one." This person's original young master's body was weak all year round. He had served the young master for a few years and is a meticulous person. However, that young master's condition worsened once and he was in danger. His mother said that these servants didn't serve him well and killed 2 of them. The rest were sold. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. From the meaning of her words, the servants were innocent victims who took the blame. She nodded. "Tell the man to come. I'll take a look." The broker quickly brought him over. He was a man in his early 20s and looked very thin and weak. There was no expression on his face. Gu Yundong asked him a few questions, but he tried his best to make it clear with the least amount of words. Gu Yundong was pleasantly surprised. Although this person was taciturn, he spoke clearly and was very organized. Moreover, he was very clear about the things to take note of when taking care of a patient. Although he was thin, he was quite strong. "The broker's face lit up. "All right, then I'll prepare the contract for you now." She was actually relieved. This person was not easy to sell. It was mainly because everyone felt that it was very unlucky that the guy had served a patient who did not end well. He had been in the brokerage for a few months, but he had not been sold. The man was also a little surprised, but he quickly calmed down. Gu Yundong waited until they left the brokerage before asking with interest, "Your name is Xue Rong, right? Who was your previous master?" Xue Rong paused for a moment and answered simply, "Xue family." Gu Yundong stopped in her tracks. The Xue family? Was it the Xue family that she knew about? Chapter 461. Xue Zhiyuan left, that's right. Gu Yundong remembered that the eldest young master of the Xue family seemed to be in poor health all year round. So, Xue Rong had served the eldest young master of the Xue family? This was really beyond her expectations. No wonder Xue Rong looked like he had undergone professional training. His silence was probably a habit he had developed in the Xie residence. He seemed to be a cautious person. Xue Rong also raised his head slightly to look at his new master. He thought that if the other party knew that he was sold by the Xie family, she would ask him some questions or return him. But Gu Yundong did not mention a word about the Xie family all the way to the inn. She only instructed him, "You have to take care of my father. He's injured, and the doctor said that he needs to recuperate for a period of time. Since you're experienced and know how to take care of others, you must know more about what to pay attention to than I do. Well, stay in the inn for the time being. You'll share a room with my father. As for the rest, you'll slowly understand in the future." "Yes, my lady." Gu Yundong nodded and the two of them went upstairs. As she turned the corner, she glanced to the other side and saw that the two guards were still standing at the door. It seemed that they had not left. After entering the house, Tong Shuetao immediately looked over and whispered, "Miss, Master is asleep." Gu Yundong's actions instantly softened. He introduced Xue Rong to her before bringing him to the edge of the bed. "This is my father, Gu Dajiang. I've told you about his injuries. If you have any questions, ask Shuetao." Xue Rong agreed. Gu Yundong looked at Gu Dajiang again before leaving. She had to keep an eye on Xue Zhiyuan's door and see when he was leaving. She was going to retrieve the recording pen. Gu Yundong went downstairs and asked the waiter for lunch. She ate slowly while waiting. There were a lot of people in the lobby. No one would notice her if she sat in the corner. About half an hour later, someone finally appeared at the staircase on the second floor. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. As expected, she saw Xue Zhiyuan coming down with two guards. Not only them, but the middle-aged man also came down. Now there's no one in the room. The middle-aged man instructed the waiter, "Clean up my room." "All right," the waiter replied. He instructed the other waiter to look after the customers downstairs and went to the second floor. Gu Yundong immediately put down her chopsticks and strode after him. She went straight to the innermost room and saw that the waiter was about to bring out the teapot. He was stunned for a moment when he saw her. "Miss, why are you here?" "I was looking for you," Gu Yundong said as she walked inside. The waiter subconsciously asked, "Why are you looking for me?" He did not bother to stop Gu Yundong from entering. Gu Yundong leaned against the table. While the waiter was distracted by the noise downstairs, he quickly reached under the table and put the recording pen into his space. Then she said, "Didn't I buy someone? I've already brought him back. He's staying in my father's room now. I want to ask you for an extra quilt for him to use. Also, send a lunch up." "That's easy. They'll send it over in a while. I'm not in a hurry. You can give it to him when you're free." With that, Gu Yundong left with a smile. She went straight into her room and locked the door before taking out the recording pen. She turned on the switch and listened to the contents quietly. Chapter 462. Abnormal Eldest Young Master. At first, there were some rustling sounds, but soon, the middle-aged man's voice sounded. "I heard that second young master has taken a concubine? What? Uncle Wei even cares about this?" "Second young master, you've misunderstood. Uncle Wei is just worried that the prefecture magistrate will be unhappy." "So what if he's unhappy? Do you think he'll stand up for his daughter and cause trouble for our Xue family?" Xue Zhiyuan's mocking voice sounded. "My father-in-law is most concerned about fame and profit. Although the Xue family is his in-law, the interests of the two families are already closely linked. What he values is the Xie family. What's a daughter?" Uncle Wei sighed. "In the end, it's not good to go too far. After all, we've slapped his face. He values the interests of the Xie family, but the second young master isn't the only master of the Xue family. Although eldest young master's body is weak, would the prefecture magistrate like him? He's a man with a strange heart. He listened to my mother's nonsense and brought those boys and girls back, hoping to make himself better. Look at how many evil deeds he's done. His hands are stained with so much blood. He's much more disgusting than me. The prefecture magistrate must hate him. Otherwise, why would he marry his daughter to me? Gu Yundong suddenly stood up and almost knocked over the stool behind her. She gripped the recording pen in her hand tightly. What did Xue just say? Boys and girls? Stained with blood? This eldest young master and that madam were actually not good people. These people from the Xue family were simply a nest of dirty rats. They stank all over, and the disgusting feeling emanating from their bones made Gu Yundong especially uncomfortable. She took a deep, slow breath and had a sip of water before she continued to play. Uncle Weiss' anxious voice came from inside. Second young master, be careful with your words. You can't spread these words around. Otherwise, not only will your brother's reputation be ruined, but the entire Xue family will also be criticized. At that time, the one who will suffer the greatest loss will still be second young master. All right, I won't say anything, okay? Zhiyuan seemed to be very impatient with Uncle Weiss' teaching. However, the two of them seemed to have a good relationship. Uncle Wei should be a servant of the Xue family. Gu Yundong had also seen with her own eyes how respectful he was to Zhiyuan. However, when they spoke now, there was a hint of intimacy and familiarity between the two of them. Zhiyuan at least treated him as half an elder. Gu Yundong memorized Uncle Wei before continuing to listen. It was still Zhiyuan who spoke. That trivial matter in our family is not worth talking about. Did you have any good news when you came back this time? Uncle Wei sighed. Everyone in the capital has already arranged for it. Those people took the money but didn't do anything. They know that the late emperor has died. Our Xue family isn't as popular as before, so all of them are shirking it. So you didn't get the sugar deal? White sugar is a business of the imperial court. The emperor can give it to whoever he wants. If the late emperor was still around, the white sugar business of Wanqing Prefecture would definitely belong to the Xue family. However, the current emperor values the Duan family more. The Duan family's momentum has not decreased in the past 2 years. If our Xue family did not have a good relationship with the prefecture magistrate, we would probably be trampled under the feet of the Duan family. However, the officials of the Xue family who were on good terms with the capital in the past are not related to the white sugar business. Moreover, the production of white sugar is limited. Every prefectural city won't obtain much. Zhiyuan seemed to have stood up. Then should we give up on the sugar business? Not really. Actually, I also heard another piece of news this time. What? Chapter 463, Targeting the Gu Family. It said that this method of making white sugar was developed by a farming family in the Xuanhe Prefecture. Later on, they offered it to the imperial court. However, that farming family had always been making sugar and trading it. Therefore, the imperial court no longer found anyone to sell white sugar in the Xuanhe Prefecture. A farmer? Zhiyuan's voice was instantly filled with excitement. Gu Yundong suddenly frowned. Were they talking about her family? F***ck, she was actually targeted. Qin Wenjing, you big idiot, you have to stop them. Uncle Weiss' voice sounded again. That's right. Unfortunately, we can't interfere with the Xuanhe Prefecture. That prefecture magistrate Dai is not an ordinary person. Why can't we? It's not like we're going to take root in the Xue family and do business. Let's go to that farmer in secret and ask him to hand over the secret recipe for making sugar. We'll give him some benefits later. Won't everyone be happy? Uncle Wei said helplessly, so what if we obtain the secret recipe to make sugar? Do you dare to make it in private and sell it? Now, the business of white sugar is controlled by the imperial court. If the emperor finds out, the Xue family will not be in a good state. Zhiyuan snorted coldly. Then, there was a hint of ruthlessness in his voice. Who said that I would sell it in Wanqing Prefecture? Only the Duan family will take a fancy to a small prefectural city's business. Second young master, you mean, if Dajiang doesn't allow us to sell it, What about Lu country? What about Qing country? They must be coveting this white sugar, right? Uncle Wei took a deep breath. Young master, do you know what you're talking about? The imperial court has white sugar. They can hold their heads high in front of other countries. If others want this white sugar, they have to beg the current emperor. If you do business with them, it won't be bad. The emperor will skin you alive. If we don't do business with them, are you really going to watch the Duan family step on our heads? But that won't do either. This isn't the time of the late emperor. Even if we have any connections with those two countries, we won't be discovered. The late emperor was muddle-headed. The current emperor is very shrewd. Zhiyuan was a little unwilling. It can be less, that won't do either. Second young master, you should give up on this idea as soon as possible, Uncle Wei said. He probably realized that his tone was too cold, so he softened his tone. Second young master, be more patient. Why don't you wait for a while and see what the emperor thinks? If he really agrees to the Duan family, it won't be too late for us to take action. Uncle Wei continued, as for the white sugar, we can do as second young master said and go to that farmer to get the secret recipe first. Leave this matter to me. You can wait for news in the residence. All right. Zhiyuan was still a little unwilling. Uncle Wei sighed and reiterated, don't contact those two countries. Wait for me to come back. I know. Zhiyuan was impatient. Then, Uncle Wei, when are you leaving? In a few days. I just returned to Wanqing Prefecture. I still have to tell your father about the situation. Then you can stay in the residence for the next few days. How can this compare to the residence? No need. It's convenient to stay here. I'm used to it. That was the end of the conversation. However, Gu Yundong's expression was as dark as water. She had thought that the three scumbags from the Xen family had caused her father to become like this. It was enough for her to settle scores with them. Unexpectedly, they had their eyes on her white sugar. Trying to force them to hand over the secret recipe? Gu Yundong sneered, in your dream. Dream. Chapter 464. Writing a letter Xen family, Xen family, Xen family. Gu Yundong's fingers tapped lightly on the table, and she put the recording pen back into her spatial storage. She would definitely not let the Xen family off. After all, even if she did not mind, the Xen family would still force her to hand over the secret recipe of the white sugar. Thus, she might as well make the first move. It was just that Gu Yundong was only a little farm girl in Yongfu village who had yet to reach adulthood. She only had more than 100 acres of land and a workshop. Compared to her, the Xen family was a colossus. Fortunately, the Xen family was courting death. Gu Yundong sneered. She took out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone and began to write a letter in detail. In the letter to Qin Wenjing, not only did she say that the Xen family and the Wanqing family were colluding, but she also said that many young masters of the Xen family were looking for boys and girls. Of course, the most important thing was that the Xen family had many connections with the other two countries. She didn't mention anything about Gu Dajiang being beaten up. However, after thinking about it, she still had to talk about how the Xen family coveted her sugar and wanted to force her to hand over the secret recipe. After all, in Qin Wenzheng's heart, Gu Yundong was not a busybody. Last time, she had warned him not to implicate her family in these dangers. How long had it been? Why would he take the initiative to write to him just because he knew about the messy situation in the Xen family? After writing this, she also analyzed the benefits that the imperial court would obtain after destroying the Xen family. The Xen family was currently dissatisfied with the fact that the imperial court valued the Duan family. They might secretly play tricks. Moreover, their family was rich. Didn't the imperial court lack money? This was delivered to the door. Coupled with getting rid of evil in name, it was killing two birds with one stone. When he was done, Gu Yundong took it and blew on it to dry the handwriting. It was just that the delivery of this letter was troublesome. The relay station usually sent messages to the officials, and she did not have a messenger pigeon. The journey of the civilians to send messages was slow and unreliable. If such an important letter was lost, it would be fatal. Gu Yundong thought for a long time and suddenly stopped tapping the table. She had an idea. After folding the letter in her hand, Gu Yundong stood up and was about to leave when she realized that it was getting dark outside. Gu Yundong frowned. Just then, there was a knock on the door, followed by Tong Xuetao's voice. "Mississippi. Come in." Tong Xuetao entered with a tray. "Miss, have dinner first." Gu Yundong rubbed her temples. Unknowingly, it was already so late. It seemed that she could only go out tomorrow. She placed the letter into her spatial storage. "How's my father?" "Master woke up once and found out that you were the one who hired Brother Xue to serve him. He even asked where you were. When he found out that Miss was busy, he didn't say anything. After taking the medicine, he fell asleep again." Tong Xuetao answered as she placed the food on the table. Gu Yundong nodded. "The medicine prescribed by Dr. Yu had the effect of calming the mind and helping him sleep. Gu Dajiang needed more rest now. Moreover, she had heard from Grandpa Yu that her father worked day and night to find them and had very little time to rest. Just the day before she met him, he had snuck into the Xen family and did not sleep for the entire night. Now, it was a good time for him to recuperate. After dinner, Gu Yundong went to Gu Dajiang's room to take a look before returning to rest. The next morning, she got up and prepared to go out with the letter she had written yesterday. Unexpectedly, as soon as she opened the door, she saw Xue Rong coming out from next door. Moreover, it seemed like he was going out. Chapter 465. Old Father's Heart. When he saw Gu Yundong, Xue Rong greeted her respectfully. Gu Yundong asked, "Where are you going so early in the morning?" Replying to young Miss, "Old Master instructed me to go to the Yu family and bring his clothes over." Gu Yundong waved his hand. "Don't go yet." As she spoke, she entered the house. Gu Dajiang had woken up and was lying on his side. His eyes were staring straight ahead, and no one knew what he was thinking. When he saw Gu Yundong, a trace of joy flashed across his face. "Yundong is here?" "Father." Gu Yundong sat on the edge of the bed. Seeing that he was in good spirits, she relaxed slightly. "Let Xue Rong take care of you here. They'll go to Grandpa Ye's house." "Sai, let A Rong go." "A Rong?" Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Xue Rong. She wouldn't have known while this person was quiet. In just half a day, he made Tong Xuetao call him Brother Xue and her father called him A Rong. Xue Rong pursed his lips. He still looked the same, quiet and obedient. Gu Yundong smiled and turned to Gu Dajiang. "Father, I originally planned to go to Grandpa Ye's house. I happened to have something to ask him for help with. Besides, they took good care of you some time ago. Logically speaking, I should go over personally to thank them." "Yes, you should indeed thank them," Gu Dajiang agreed. Then he frowned. "But you don't know that the people living near the Yu family are very messy. It's not safe for a girl like you to go over. How about this? Let A Rong accompany you. I'm already much better today. It's fine without him taking care of me." "Father, I can go alone." "No, I'm worried. Why don't you let A Rong accompany you? Or let A Rong go on your behalf?" Gu Yundong choked. Along the way, she had always made her own decisions. But now, facing her father who cared about her, there were some things that she could not refuse. Sighing, Gu Yundong could only nod. "All right, I'll get Xue Rong to accompany me." Gu Dajiang revealed a smile. "It's a pity that father is injured. Otherwise, father would have accompanied you. I may not be back in a while." To ease her father, Gu Yundong could only bring Xue Rong along. Before leaving, he instructed Tong Xuetao to take care of her father. In a while, Dr. Yu would come over to change his bandage. If there was anything else he needed help with, he would call the waiter. Tong Xuetao was still a little resentful as she glared fiercely at Xue Rong. To think that she had called him Brother Xue yesterday. She did not expect him to fight for Miss Favor the moment he arrived. Miss did not even bring her along when she went out. Xue Rong was stunned for a moment, but he did not say anything and quickly followed. Gu Yundong specially went to buy some things before heading to the Yu residence. They drove the carriage there. The road was a little long, but the carriage stopped at the entrance of the alley. It was not easy to ride inside. It was still the same alley and those sizing gazes. Gu Yundong did not care, but Xue Rong frowned slightly. He followed Gu Yundong cautiously, glancing left and right from time to time. When he saw a few young men with sloppy gazes that revealed greed, Xue Rong's heart could not help but thump. Fortunately, not long after, they entered the Yu family. There were people in the Yu family, so the courtyard door was open. Gu Yundong had just walked in, but before she could make a sound, an unfamiliar voice came from inside. "Old Yu, why don't you go out and find work these 2 days? I'm afraid that there won't be anyone at home when Dajiang comes back. He'll rest for 2 days. Anyway, I won't be able to find any work," Uncle Yu said with a smile. Unexpectedly, the other party sneered. "He probably won't come back, right?" Chapter 466. Grandpa Zhang next door. Grandpa Yu was unhappy. "What do you mean? Didn't you say that his daughter came looking for him? She's quite rich. The person who came the afternoon before yesterday was his daughter's maidservant, right? She even used a maidservant. Gu Dajiang must have followed his daughter to enjoy life. How could he still remember his poor friend here? Don't talk nonsense." "How am I spouting nonsense? Otherwise, why didn't Gu Dajiang come to see you after a few days? He might be enjoying himself now and have long forgotten about your family. You're the only one who's still waiting at home." Grandpa Yes' voice was filled with anger. "I know Dajiang better than you. He must have been delayed by something. Don't spout nonsense here. I'm busy. Go back to your house." "Hey, why are you, Grandpa Yu, are you home?" Gu Yundong suddenly shouted. Grandpa Yu was stunned. He quickly put down the basket he was weaving and came out happily. "Yundong, you're here?" He looked behind her. Although he saw a man, it wasn't Gu Dajiang. He was immediately puzzled. As Gu Yundong walked inside, he explained, "My father didn't come. Actually, when I met him 2 days ago, he was seriously ill and has been recuperating in bed for the past 2 days. 2 days ago, Xue Tao came over. I specially asked her not to say anything, afraid that you would be worried." As she spoke, she had already seen the people in the room. It was a man who was slightly younger than Grandpa Yu. When he heard his words, he smiled awkwardly. Gu Yundong did not look at him. She just asked Xue Rong to put the things he had bought on the table. "Grandpa Yu, this is food bought on the street. My father specially instructed me to buy it. He wanted to come too, but the doctor instructed him to rest more and come back after he recovers." When Grandpa Yu heard that Gu Dajiang was sick, he became anxious and didn't even look at the things on the table. On the other hand, the other person in the room kept looking sideways. He even swallowed his saliva and wanted to know what was inside. "Why is your father sick? What illness is he suffering from?" "I'll go see him," Grandpa Yu asked nervously. He knew that Gu Dajiang must have been delayed. Gu Yundong smiled and helped him sit down. "I'm fine. He's already seen a doctor. He just caught a cold. It's not good for him to go out again. You shouldn't go. If he passes it to you, my father will feel uneasy." Grandpa Yu thought about it and agreed. "Your father is sick. Don't come over. It's more important to take care of your father. I must come and take a look." As Gu Yundong spoke, she glanced at the table where the gift box was placed. Seeing that the stranger was getting closer and closer, she could not help but twitch her lips. She asked, "This is..." Grandpa Yu seemed to have just remembered that there was another person at home. He immediately patted his head and said, "It's Grandpa Zhang next door." Grandpa Zhang forced a bright smile at Gu Yundong. "You must be Dajiang's daughter. You're really good-looking, polite, and filial. I'm your Grandpa Zhang from the family on the left. Your father and I have known each other for a long time. He's been suffering and has been looking for you. This time he's sick. You have to take good care of him. It's not easy for him. It's really not easy. Unfortunately, I don't have much ability to help him." He even wiped his eyes as he spoke, looking very sad. Gu Yundong was speechless. Chapter 467. Box with a secret compartment. You've got quite a lot of drama. Grandpa, you could not stand it anymore. He waved his hand and chased him away. Alright. This has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and go home. Your grandson will come looking for you later. Grandpa Zhang let out a sigh and refused to leave. I'm talking to him. Why don't you know any etiquette? How can you chase a guest out? I haven't forgotten what you said just now. Why don't I have a good talk with the Gu family's girl? Grandpa Zhang immediately fell silent and snorted. Seriously, if you want to leave, so be it. You're too much. With that, she hurriedly left. Grandpa Yu closed the courtyard door and blocked the view outside. He then came back to greet Gu Yundong. Yundong, take a seat first. He poured 2 glasses of water for her. Why did you bring anything? These things are expensive. Grandpa Yu, I hope you don't mind, Gu Yundong said politely. Then, he changed the topic and said in a low voice, Actually, I came today to ask for your help with something. Tell me. As long as I can help, I'll definitely help. Grandpa Yu, do you know any carpenters? I want to ask someone to make me a small box with a secret compartment. Uncle Yu slapped his leg. I know him. There's a carpenter Tan in an alley over there. He's very skilled, but he doesn't have a good temper, so he doesn't take on many jobs. Grandpa Yu, can you bring me to meet him? Are you in a hurry? Gu Yundong nodded. Yes, it's best if you can give it to me today. Alright, I'll take you there. Grandpa Yu did not delay any longer. He brought Gu Yundong out of the courtyard and went straight to the Tan family. Carpenter Tan was said to have a bad temper, but in fact, he was not very social. He spoke little and almost only answered questions. But Gu Yundong had seen the things made in his courtyard. They were indeed sturdy and beautiful. Gu Yundong explained the appearance to him. It was actually not complicated and was not big. It was just a small rectangular box that contained hairpins. The most important thing was the secret compartment. This had to be made solid. Carpenter Tan's movements were very fast and skilled. With a few swooshes, he sawed the wood and cut the connector. The hardest part was the secret compartment, which took some time. However, it took less than an hour. Gu Yundong thought that it would take a day to do this, but she did not expect it to take so little time. Carpenter Tan polished the box twice in the end. It was very flat and smooth to the touch. He then waxed it again. By the time Gu Yundong got it, it was still too early. She became happy and gave Carpenter Tan a tael of silver. Carpenter Tan was stunned when he saw this. It did not take much effort for him to buy such a small wooden box. He did not need so much at all. But Gu Yundong had already left with the wooden box. When she left the Tan family, she said to the old man, Grandpa Yu, I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. I'll visit you again after my father recovers. Grandpa Yu could also tell that she seemed to be in a hurry. Alright, I'll send you off. No need. Xue Rong is here. Take your time and go home first. Remember to eat the pastries I brought for you. Don't let them go bad. The weather is hot now. As soon as he finished speaking, he left with large strides with Xue Rong before he could speak. With the box, she could deliver the letter. Unfortunately, there were always obstacles blocking her path to success. Gu Yundong sighed inwardly as she looked at the 4 people who had stopped him. Chapter 468. Eldest Miss is so powerful. Xue Rong's expression suddenly tensed up. He did not know martial arts, and his body was even a little thin. There were 4 of them. He could only hold back 2 at most. If he had known earlier, he would not have kept quiet but let Grandpa Yu send them off. The 4 of them had already surrounded them. Miss, don't be afraid. We just want money. Look at how hard our lives are. Give us some money and buy peace. Isn't it good for everyone to live in harmony? Xue Rong was already prepared for battle. He whispered to Gu Yundong without looking back, Miss, I'll hold them back later. Run quickly. This side is close to the Yu family. Run towards the Yu family. Gu Yundong held his forehead and laughed. She patted Xue Rong's shoulder and looked at the 4 of them. I have something urgent to attend to. It's better if you don't block my way. Otherwise, you'll suffer if I don't hold back. The four of them were stunned and could not help but laugh. "Miss, you're scaring us." Gu Yundong sighed. Seeing that they were slowly crowding around him, he immediately handed the box in his hand to Xue Rong. "Hold it. Stand there and don't move." Xue Rong, who was about to walk forward, suddenly stopped. The next moment he widened his eyes and watched in shock as Gu Yundong flipped someone to the ground. Then she picked up a stick from the ground and hit the other person's back. Then she kicked another person's knee. That person's face instantly twisted as he knelt on the ground. In the end, she walked towards the last person. That person watched helplessly as his three accomplices fell to the ground in an instant. His expression changed. He looked in horror at Gu Yundong, whose hair was not even messy. "Ah!" he screamed and turned to run. Gu Yundong sneered and threw away the stick in his hand. She patted her dress and tidied her clothes. She walked back to Xue Rong's side, took the box, and strode out of the alley. Xue Rong was still standing on the spot, suspecting that there was something wrong with his eyes. How is this possible? Miss was alone, wearing a dress that got in the way. She was clearly still young. But she had actually dealt with all four of them in the blink of an eye? Xue Rong? Gu Yundong called him from outside. "Coming." Xue Rong glanced at the person on the ground again and hurriedly turned around to follow. Gu Yundong keenly sensed a slight change in his attitude, as if he had become more respectful. The two of them did not speak along the way. They were about to reach the entrance of the inn. Xue Rong finally couldn't help but ask, "Young Miss Martial Arts Competition?" Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. "You should know that I fled from the Yongning Prefecture to the Xuanhe Prefecture, right?" Xue Rong had been following her. When she chatted with Grandpa Yu, she would mention the past from time to time. Xue Rong thought for a moment and came to a realization. That's right. Miss had come all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture without Old Master by her side. What she had experienced was simply unimaginable. How could those four people stop Miss? But he still felt that Miss was very powerful. It had to be known that on the way to escape, the fate of women was usually not very good, especially when there was no one to protect them. However, Miss had to protect her family all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture safely. Clearly, she was stronger than he had imagined. "All right, you go back to the inn first. You'll make a trip to the pharmacy." Gu Yundong got down from the carriage. "Yes." Chapter 469. This is a life-saving thing. Gu Yundong went to the pharmacy next door and grabbed a few herbs. Then she found an empty place and wrapped the letter for Qin Wenjing with oil paper in 2 layers before placing it in the secret compartment of the box that she had just made. She took a hairpin and placed it in the box before covering it. Then, she took the medicine bag and box to an escort company not far away. She went straight to the escort in charge. "I want to send something to Fengkai County in Xuanhe Prefecture, but the thing I want to send is very urgently needed. It's best if it can be delivered within 4 days." The escort leader frowned. 4 days? It was a little rush to travel from Wanqing Prefecture to Xuanhe Prefecture. He did not agree and only asked, "What's to be sent?" Gu Yundong took out a medicine bag and a box. "I have a friend who's terminally ill and needs medicine urgently. These are the medicines I found for her. They're for saving her life. And this box. She left the hairpin inside with me. It's something her mother left for her. Let's leave it for her as a memento." The escort leader understood. This was a life-saving thing, and it didn't leave any regrets. After a pause, he looked at Gu Yundong and said, "Well, take this escort, but you know that if we want to rush to the Xuanhe Prefecture in such a short time, not to mention traveling day and night, well, definitely have to change horses in between. I'm afraid this price is not cheap." "I know. Hey, race 100 taels of silver. Is it enough?" The escort leader's expression relaxed a little. "That's enough." In a few days, at most 2 people were required to deliver the thing. It was not a loss to earn 100 taels. Furthermore, the journey to the Xuanhe Prefecture was very peaceful. It was not like they were escorting a large number of goods, so they would not encounter any danger. It wouldn't cost much to change horses. He just needed to make up the difference in price. Gu Yundong discussed with the escort leader again and gave him the address. He also repeatedly reminded him that the escort this time was for saving lives. If the item could be delivered as soon as possible, it should be delivered as soon as possible. She knew that this escort agency was trustworthy. The escort leader valued loyalty. Moreover, the escort leader had said that he would do this job himself. Gu Yundong was relieved and turned to leave. She had no choice. If she just let the escort agency deliver the letter, she would be finished if she accidentally lost it or if someone saw the contents. She bought medicine and made a secret compartment. Although it took some effort, it was at least safer. In the future, she had to think of a way to get some secret code or something. Her family would understand and find the information she wanted them to know. This way, she wouldn't have to worry about others seeing the letter. This time, the address Gu Yundong gave the escort leader was Qin Wenzheng's school. She was afraid that someone would know about Qin Wenzheng, so the recipient was simply Gu. Qin Wenzheng was such a smart person. When he saw the medicine packet, he should be able to guess that she had sent it to him, right? After all, he knew that she had come to Wanqing Prefecture to look for medicine. She had given him medicine for no reason, and there was also an inexplicable hairpin and box. He would definitely notice that something was wrong. He was a young top scholar after all, so his brain worked quickly. Gu Yundong expressed that she was very confident in Qin Wenjing. Hopefully he would not want to disappoint him. As for the 100 taels of silver, she would get it back from the Xian family. After she was done, she turned around and walked towards the inn. Before leaving, she even went to the ready-to-wear shop to buy a few sets of clothes for Gu Dajiang and Xue Rong. When she went to Grandpa Ye's house, she didn't bring Gu Dajiang's 2 sets of tattered clothes back. She couldn't wear those clothes at all. They were all patched up. Could it be that she was wearing the clothes cleanly and let her father wear dirty clothes? Carrying his clothes, Gu Yundong's footsteps became much lighter. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the inn, he saw a familiar middle-aged man. Wasn't this the man who was talking to Xine Zhiyuan in the room that day? Chapter 470. So powerful Gu Yundong remembered that he said that he would personally make a trip to the Xuanhe Prefecture in a few days to look for the farmer who made white sugar. If you want to go, you have to be able to do it. As the middle-aged man walked upstairs, Gu Yundong had already found an angle and walked behind a potted plant in the corner. There was no one there. She was holding the toy gun. Just as the man Xen Zhiyuan called Uncle Wei was about to walk up the last step, she instantly hit his leg. Uncle Wei felt a sharp pain in his legs and fell to the side uncontrollably. The waiter was the first to notice that something was wrong. He hurriedly shouted, "Be careful." He wanted to rush forward to support her, but it was too late. Uncle Wei wanted to grab the railing with both hands, but he couldn't. He rolled down the stairs. A customer who was about to go upstairs subconsciously stood to the side. His hands were still tightly gripping the railing as he watched him roll down. Gu Yundong almost laughed out loud. She hurriedly covered her mouth and walked out from behind the potted plant. Uncle Wei rolled to the bottom. His face was pale and he was sweating profusely. He held his leg and cried out in pain. As so powerful? She was afraid that the fall wouldn't be serious enough, and she wanted to stab him again later. The waiter hurriedly ran up, and the others in the hall also rushed forward to help. Instantly, there was a commotion below. As Gu Yundong walked over, she searched for the 2 bullets and quickly put away the destruction evidence. Then, without even looking at Uncle Wei, who was carried out of the door, she went upstairs. Tong Shuedao came out and asked curiously, "Miss, you're back. What happened downstairs? It's so noisy." "Oh, someone accidentally rolled down the stairs. Be careful when you take the stairs next time." "Of course, my lady." Gu Yundong entered the room. Gu Dajiang was still awake and Xue Rong was serving him porridge. "I'll do it." Gu Yundong placed the clothes on the table, took the porridge bowl, and personally fed it to Gu Dajiang. "Father, how do you feel today?" "Much better. Doctor, you said that you gave him a lot of money. He used the best medicine, and it doesn't hurt much when I turn my body now. Seriously, if you have some money, just save for yourself in the future." There's no need to use the best medicine. Won't I recover after a few more days? Gu Yundong fed him a mouthful. Father, don't you want to get better as soon as possible and go back to see mother and brother and sister? Gu Dajiang immediately stopped talking. He just opened his mouth and obediently finished the porridge. Then she leaned against the folded blanket and sighed softly. I wonder how they are now. Yundong, tell me about the situation at home. I'm very concerned. Okay. In the past 2 days, Gu Dajiang had either been sleeping and recuperating while Gu Yundong had been busy with other things. They really hadn't sat down properly to talk about family matters. Gu Yundong took a fan from the side and fanned him. The weather was already hot, and Gu Dajiang's wound was drenched in sweat. Mother has always been thinking about father. She has dreamed of you several times. Moreover, mother's illness has a high chance of being cured. We found an imperial physician who gave mother an acupuncture session. Although she hasn't recovered now, it won't worsen in the future. He said that as long as he finds the last medicine, he can completely cure mother. Gu Dajiang's eyes lit up when he heard that. He was slightly excited. Really? Of course it's true. Actually, I came to Wanqing Prefecture this time to look for that medicine. Chapter 471. Let's say something delightful. What medicine? It's a medicine called Bimusi. Don't worry, father. I already have clues. Xue Rong, who was standing behind Gu Yundong, was slightly stunned. However, he quickly regained his composure. Gu Yundong glanced at him from the corner of her eye before continuing to say to Gu Dajiang, Father, don't worry about mother. This kind of thing can't be rushed. When we find Bimusi, everything will naturally be fine. Gu Dajiang nodded. Yes, there's no hurry. I've already waited for so long. I don't mind waiting a little longer. Besides, even if Lunyang couldn't recover in her lifetime, he would still take good care of her. Gu Yundong saw that he was a little sad and immediately changed the topic. On the other hand, Yunshu is much more lively now. He's already in school. Gu Dajiang immediately said in surprise, He went to study? That's right. His master used to be the top scholar. The students he took in were all of good character. He was the youngest among his classmates. Everyone took good care of him. Now he's so happy that he forgets about home. The smile on Gu Dajiang's face widened. The joy on his face was obvious. Good. Yunshu is starting to read and write. He even took the top scholar as his master. This is something that many people don't even dare to think about. He will definitely be promising in the future. Gu Dajiang had thought that no matter how much his family objected, he would definitely send Yunshu to school when Yunshu was grown. He had already been destroyed by the Gu family. He would never allow Yunshu, who was also talented, to be mediocre for the rest of his life. Only by studying for the imperial examination and leaving the Gu village would his future be bright. However, he did not expect that after Lunyang injured her head, he could not split up. Then they encountered a famine. The family fled their hometown. Fortunately, Yunshu still went to school when he was in his initiation year. This was all thanks to Yundong. His daughter was more capable than him. What about Yunka? Gu Dajiang was most worried about her. She was too young. When she was still in the Gu family, she couldn't even walk steadily because she didn't eat well or receive good care. She had been unconscious most of the time during their escape. He often had the illusion that she was not even breathing. He was terrified. Kiki. Gu Yundong laughed. She's a little foodie now. She can eat anything. Yunshu calls her a fat chick. It makes her so angry that she keeps saying that she doesn't want her brother anymore. But once Yunshu goes to school, she gets anxious when she doesn't see her brother for a day. Every day when she goes home, she's the first to run out to welcome him. Gu Dajiang laughed when he heard that. Yundong's words were like a painting. In the painting, there was Lunyang and his 3 children. The family was happy, warm, and blissful. He could not wait to recover from his injuries and go back. Gu Yundong said a lot of interesting things. But for some reason, she didn't dare to mention Xiao Qingyuan. She felt that mentioning him in front of an old father who had just found his daughter would agitate him. Yes, her father was still recuperating. It was better to say something that made him happy. Gu Yundong did not say anything about Yuanji. At the mention of him, she would definitely talk about eldest Aunt Gu, who had yet to be found, and Bien Mulan, who had passed away. Gu Dajiang doted on Bien Mulan very much. If he knew that she was gone, he would probably feel terrible. Gu Yundong only mentioned interesting things until Gu Dajiang looked a little tired. Then she let him rest and went out. Xue Rong followed him out. He pursed his lips as he looked at Gu Yundong, as if he had something to say. Chapter 472. Xue Rong's Distrust. Gu Yundong walked towards her room. Seeing that he was still standing there, she raised her eyebrows and said, "Come in. Don't you have something to tell me?" Xue Rong lowered his head and followed her into the room. He carefully closed the door. He even went over to pour a cup of tea for Gu Yundong. This person had really been professionally trained. "Miss, you said that you have a clue about Bai Muzi. Were you referring to the Xue family?" Gu Yundong thought that he indeed knew. "I were. But are you trying to persuade me to give up? Do you think it's impossible to get Bai Muzi from the Xue family?" Xue Rong thought for a moment. It's indeed impossible to obtain Bai Muzi from the Xue family because it is no longer in the Xue family. Gu Yundong suddenly stood up from his chair. "What did you say?" Xue Rong said, there was indeed a Bai Muzi in the Xue family. However, 3 months ago, the eldest young master of the Xue family suddenly fell ill, and Bai Muzi was used by him. What he didn't say was that it was also because of that illness that 2 servants were killed in the courtyard of the eldest young master of the Xue family. The rest were sold, and he was one of them. Gu Yundong frowned fiercely. 2 to 3 months ago, didn't that mean that it was gone before Dr. Song wrote to her? Communications in this era were so inconvenient that the information lagged for so long. "You promise no more?" Xue Rong knelt down. "I can swear that I didn't lie to you just now." "Alright, get up. I don't mean to question you." Gu Yundong rubbed her temples and sighed inwardly. However, Xue Rong still knelt on the ground and had no intention of getting up. Gu Yundong frowned. "But, is there anything else?" "Miss, I know that old master's injury was caused by the second young master of the Xue family." Xue Rong lowered his head. "Miss, do you want to avenge old master? You don't think I can do it?" Xue Rong pursed his lips. Hearing Gu Yundong's words, his body trembled and he hesitated for a moment. He shut his mouth and did not say anything else. Gu Yundong was so angry that she almost laughed. "Xue Rong, I know that you used to serve the eldest young master of the Xue family. The Xue family is rich and has many rules. There are also many demons and monsters inside, and there are endless open and hidden conflicts. I understand that you've developed a cautious personality, but am not the Xue family. There's no need to hide anything, and you don't have to be afraid that I'll be unhappy if I hear it. I hope you can be straightforward. I won't blame you." Xue Rong was stunned for a moment before he smiled bitterly in his heart. After a long time, he nodded slightly. "I don't think you can't do it, Mississippi. It's just that the Xue residence is far larger than what the outside world sees. The inside is complicated. Not only does it have the Prefecture magistrate as its backer, but it also has someone in the capital and even. In short, it won't be easy for Miss to deal with second young master." Gu Yundong sneered. After saying so much, didn't he still think that she couldn't do it? Indeed, if she was alone, she would consider it carefully. After all, dealing with the Xue family was not the same as dealing with the Gu family. But didn't the Xue family want to die? She could give them a push. "Alright, I know what you're saying. I know what to do. Go back and take care of my father first." Xue Rong felt that Miss would not let the matter rest, but he could not say anything. In the following days, Gu Yundong focused on taking care of Gu Dajiang. It was as if he had nothing else to do other than let him recuperate. Xue Rong had a very strange feeling. Miss seemed to have given up, but she also seemed to be planning something, but she did not do anything. 6 days later, When Gu Dajiang could walk on the ground, someone came to the inn. Chapter 473:1 Am Mo Xulin. When Gu Yundong went downstairs, he brushed past someone. When that person passed by her, he said in a low voice, "Miss Gu, let's talk in private." Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment. She turned her head and glanced at him. This person looked very ordinary and was dressed in the same style as the guests in the inn. No one would notice him in the crowd. But Gu Yundong could still feel that he was constantly tense. He was a martial artist. She calculated the time and roughly guessed who this person was. Seeing that she didn't say anything or respond, the other party thought that he had been too abrupt and quickly added, "Mr. Qin asked me to come." Gu Yundong nodded and the man went downstairs first. Seeing him leave the inn, Gu Yundong slowly walked out of the door as if she was taking a leisurely stroll. That person walked at a moderate pace in front, and Gu Yundong followed him slowly, until he turned at an intersection and entered a small courtyard. When Gu Yundong entered the courtyard, he realized that there were about a dozen people inside. All of them looked travel-worn. They looked like they had just arrived at Wanqing Prefecture. Upon seeing her enter, one of them, who seemed to be their leader, immediately stood up. "Miss Gu, Am Mo Xulin. I'm here on Lord Qin's orders to investigate the Xue family. By the way, this is from Lord Qin." He took out a letter and handed it to Gu Yundong. She opened the envelope. There were 2 full pieces of paper. Gu Yundong read it quickly, but after reading it, she immediately cursed in her heart. The content of Qin Wenzheng's letter was very simple. He said that the news sent by Gu Yundong was very timely because the emperor was intending to deal with the magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture and the Xue family. Previously, when the new emperor ascended the throne, he planted 2 trusted aides in Yongning Prefecture after the famine and Qingan Prefecture after the chaos. Prefecture Magistrate Dai of Xuanhe Prefecture also became the new emperor's subordinate. The commotion was too great. If he wanted to touch the prefecture magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture who had a deep foundation, he would be a little too hasty. Especially since the Wanqing Prefecture had the Xue family. The officials and merchants colluded to control the entire Wanqing Prefecture. The emperor knew that the prefecture magistrate wasn't a good person, and he also knew that the Xue family wasn't clean. It was obvious just from how luxurious their residence was. Now that more than half a year had passed, the emperor was indeed prepared to take down Wanqing Prefecture. It could be seen from the fact that he had started to support the Duan family. However, the emperor had been collecting information on the Xue family and the magistrate. This information could not be too small. Otherwise, who knew when they would make a comeback? Just as they were looking for a breakthrough, Gu Yundong unexpectedly gave them a pleasant surprise. The Xue family was simply too daring. They actually dared to have dealings with the other 2 countries. This kind of dealings was not ordinary business dealings. Clearly, it was related to the imperial court. Actually, Qin Wenzheng also knew that with the ability of the Xue family, even if they had dealings, it was only some money transactions. The Xue family was not qualified to come into contact with the center of political power. Even if they wanted to betray their country, they would not be able to do it. However, this was enough. Especially when it was related to the prefecture magistrate here, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to kill the entire family. Therefore, Qin Wenzheng sent people over to prepare for a drastic reorganization. The question was, why did he want her to find a way to get incriminating evidence? Gu Yundong wanted to slam the table. Wasn't her mission over after informing them? It was enough for her to just wait and watch the show. Why was Qin Wenzheng still adding trouble for her? Gu Yundong slammed the letter on the table and pointed at Am Mo Xulin. Chapter 474, Seduction. You all seem to be highly skilled in martial arts. If you want to find evidence, you can just sneak in, right? Gu Yundong was so angry that she laughed. I'm a weak woman, and you actually handed the most important thing to me? Do you think I'm too good-looking and want others to chop me into pieces? Am Mo Xulin was speechless. Miss, don't feel so good about yourself, all right? He coughed lightly and said, "The XN residence is heavily guarded. It's naturally not a problem for us to sneak in, but it's easy to alert the enemy." Heavily guarded? Didn't her father, Gu Dajiang, sneak in? No, Gu Dajiang could only ask around outside. He couldn't go to the master's courtyard, let alone the places where evidence was placed. Am Mo Xulin continued, "Actually, it's not like no one has infiltrated the Xian family before. They even entered Master Zin's study, but there's nothing in the study. If we want to find evidence of guilt, I'm afraid a few days won't be enough. If you can't find it in the study, do you think I can? Once we alert the enemy, the Xian family will be easy. We can just capture them anyway, but the forces in the capital that colluded with the Xian family will be on guard." Gu Yundong was enlightened. "Are you making such a big move this time? It won't be easy to clean up the mess." So, what the emperor really wanted to deal with were those people in the capital. All the more reason for her not to get involved. Am Mo Xulin lowered his eyes. He could not say anything in front of Gu Yundong. However, seeing that she was unwilling, he immediately thought of what Qin Wenjing had said. He could only take a step back and say, "Miss Gu, if you're really unwilling, then can you figure out the approximate location of the important letters in the Xan residence?" Seeing that Gu Yundong wanted to refute, he immediately added, "Lord Qin said that since Miss Gu has the ability to obtain the news that Xian Zhiyuan colluded with another country, you can definitely do these things. He really thinks highly of me." Lord Qin also said that if Miss makes a great contribution and the Xan family is raided later, Miss can choose a few valuable items first. Gu Yundong stood up. "All right, I'll go back and think about it." She kept the letter and turned to leave the small courtyard. When the others saw this, they looked at each other and asked Am Mo Xulin, did she agree or not? Am Mo Xulin was unfathomable. "What do you think?" However, he quickly restrained his expression. "Inform the Duan family and ask them to cooperate with us if necessary." Should we inform Commander Liu of Wanqing Prefecture? One had to bring troops over to arrest a family. It's said that Commander Liu doesn't have a good relationship with the Prefecture magistrate. Perhaps he can help. However, Am Mo Xulin shook his head. "It's hard to say if they're not on good terms. Maybe they're just putting on a show for us. Third brother has already gone elsewhere to mobilize troops. Let's wait a few more days." "Yes." The others in the courtyard quickly went to work. Gu Yundong felt a headache when she returned to the inn. Qin Wenjing was indeed unreliable. However, although she was cursing Qin Wenjing in her heart, her mind still started to spin. In the following days, Gu Yundong was very busy. Tong Shuetao did not know what she was doing. In any case, she would do whatever young Miss instructed her to do. Gu Dajiang was a little worried. He had once asked Gu Yundong, but she said that it was for business. Only Xue Rong started to feel uneasy. A few days later, when he saw Gu Yundong writing the names of everyone in the Xan family on paper in the room, his thoughts were finally confirmed. He had a feeling that it was just as he expected. Chapter 475. Finally talking. Gu Yundong glanced at him. "What's the matter? Miss, you must deal with the Xan family?" Xue Rong finally exhaled and asked in a low voice, "How confident are you?" 90%. Gu Yundong smiled. Xue Rong looked at her in surprise and disbelief. "Miss, why? Don't you believe me? You've been here for so many days, so you should know how I conduct myself. When have you seen me boast?" Xue Rong paused. He had indeed been silently paying attention to Miss' words and actions these past few days. He more or less knew her personality. However, he already knew that the young lady's identity was only that of a peasant girl. She had no power or influence against the Xan family and could not gain any advantage. 90% confident? Xue Rong suddenly thought of how busy Gu Yundong had been these past few days and how mysterious he looked. Could it be that Miss had a helper? And this helper was not an ordinary person? If that was the case, Xue Rong was slightly excited. His fingers tugged and tugged. After a long time, he seemed to have made up his mind. If Miss wants to deal with the Xian family, I can help. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and put down her brush. She placed the piece of paper with the names of the various masters of the Xen family aside and smiled. "You're finally going to talk?" Xue Rong was stunned. "Finally?" Gu Yundong faced him. "I'm listening. Go ahead." She knew that Xue Rong definitely knew something, and it was something that others did not know. Previously, he had said that the Xen family was rich and powerful. Not only did they have people in the capital, but they even what? He did not finish his sentence, but Gu Yundong could guess that Xue Rong probably knew that the Xen family had connections beyond his country. Moreover, Xue Rong had a grudge against the Xen family. As expected, Xue Rong's expression was not good when he talked about his days in the Xen family. "Miss, you know that I used to serve Eldest young master in his courtyard. 3 months ago, all the servants in Eldest young master's courtyard, except his nanny, were sold. 2 of them were beaten to death. The reason was that they didn't serve Eldest young master well and almost caused Eldest young master's illness to act up and kill him." Gu Yundong nodded. "He even ate by Musi because of this." Xue Rong became slightly excited. "One of the 2 servants who were beaten to death is my younger sister." Gu Yundong raised his head and looked at him in surprise. "However, no one in the residence knows that. My sister and I have acknowledged each other in private. It's not easy to serve the eldest young master in his courtyard. The eldest young master is sick all year round and has a bad temper. My sister suffered a lot because of this. Although we worked in the eldest young master's courtyard, we couldn't enter the inner room to serve him usually. The eldest young master has a special guard to help him search." He took a deep breath and said, "Search for children." Only the nanny could enter the inner room. That day, the nanny was not around because she had something on. The eldest young master suddenly shouted in the inner room. It was Xue Rong's sister and another maidservant who ran in. In the end, they saw a girl lying on the ground with a pair of scissors in her hand. The scissors were stained with blood, and so was the eldest young master's neck. The girl must have stabbed the young master, but the girl was also killed by the young master on the spot. Xue Rong's sister was scared to death at that time. She and the other maidservant were at a loss. Only when the eldest young master looked over fiercely did the 2 of them hurriedly stop the bleeding. The eldest young master might have lost too much blood and fainted on the spot. The other maidservant was afraid. After she and Xue Rong's sister carried him to the bed, she said that she wanted to call a doctor and ran away on the spot. Chapter 476. A rumor: Xue Rong's sister could only take care of the eldest young master by herself. When she was bandaging eldest young master, her fingers trembled in fear and she accidentally spilled the medicinal powder on the bed. She quickly found a rag to wipe it off. Her movements were too erratic, and she accidentally pushed aside the pillow on the eldest young master's bed and saw 2 letters inside. She knew that she shouldn't be curious, but at the same time, she also knew that she had seen what had happened today. She was afraid that eldest young master wouldn't let her off easily. Since she was going to die anyway, what did it matter if she took a look? At that time, the sister calmed down and carefully took out the letter. There were 2 letters. One was a letter where the Xien family had contacted the Lu country. The other was a report from a subordinate of the eldest young master regarding the situation in the capital. Sister Xue felt that her heart was about to jump out, and cold sweat kept pouring out. At this moment, urgent footsteps came from outside the door. Sister Xue hurriedly stuffed the letters back in. She slid under the bed and hid inside. It was the eldest young master's nanny who came in. She called him anxiously a few times and heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that he had woken up. "The doctor will be here soon. How do you feel?" "Nanny under the pillow. There are 2 letters. Take them back and hide them." Xen Ziming's breathing was weak, and his words were intermittent. The nanny put away the 2 letters but did not leave immediately. When the doctor came and young master's injuries stabilized a little, she left while no one was paying attention. However, Sister Xue had been hiding under the bed. She wanted to wait until everyone left before coming out. However, there was always someone guarding the room. The eldest young master's conditions suddenly worsened in the middle of the night. His eyes and mouth were crooked, as if he was about to have a stroke. The doctor said that the young master's health was not good to begin with, and he had lost too much blood this time. His life was in danger, and the Bimusi was used up at that time. Fortunately, on the second day, his condition improved, and there was finally a time when there was no one in the room. Sister Xue took advantage of this time to crawl out from under the bed. When she came out, she realized that the entire courtyard was guarded. She could not even leave the eldest young master's house. She even vaguely heard that the maidservant who had seen the eldest young master's condition with her previously tried to escape from the XN residence, but was captured and brought back. Now, the guards in the residence were looking for Sister Xue everywhere. Sister Xue knew that she would not be able to escape death. She was in despair, but she was unwilling to accept her fate, so she returned to the house. She took the brush on the eldest young master's table and hid under the bed and table to write down everything she saw and heard. This letter was for Xue Rong. At the end of the letter, she even instructed Xue Rong to think of a way to leave the Xian family. Something would happen sooner or later if the Xian family colluded with foreign countries. After writing, she stuffed the letter into her shoes and socks. When she was found by the guards in the residence, she was beaten to death on the spot. When Xue Rong heard the news, he only saw his sister's corpse. Xue Rong found the letter when he was collecting her corpse. He hated the Xian family, but he was too weak to take revenge. Then, the others in the courtyard were also sold. Gu Yundong listened to the entire process and sighed inwardly. Seeing the forbearance and hatred on Xue Rong's usually expressionless face, she could only say in a low voice, "Don't worry, I'll avenge your sister this time." "Thank you, Mississippi." So to speak, everything was taken by young Master Zin's nanny? The answer was really unexpected. This nanny is quite trusted. Xue Rong thought for a moment and said, "Actually, there has always been a rumor in the Xen family." Chapter 477. The Xen family has been raided. Gu Yundong's interest was piqued. What rumor? Eldest young master's nanny is actually old Master Zin's woman. Her status is even higher than ordinary concubines. I heard that when old master was young, he went out to discuss business and brought this nanny along. Xue Rong said, although the nanny serves eldest young master, she often enters and exits old master's study with the excuse of reporting eldest young master's situation. Gu Yundong could not help but pause. This gossip was a little big. Is the nanny beautiful? Xue Rong was speechless. Wasn't Miss Focus a little off? However, he still shook his head honestly. She can't compare to master's concubines. Gu Yundong pushed a cup of tea over. All right, I know what you're talking about. Go back and take care of my father. I'm going out for a while. Yes, my lady. Gu Yundong left the inn and returned not long after. His expression was obviously relaxed. In the following days, she didn't leave the inn much. She spent most of her time by Gu Dajiang's side. Seeing that his health was improving, the smile on Gu Yundong's face became lighter. When he recovered, they could go back. Half a month later, Gu Dajiang could already go downstairs for a walk. Although it was still unnatural, it was a luxury for Gu Dajiang, who had been cooped up in his room for nearly a month. Gu Yundong helped him down. Standing at the entrance of the inn, Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. In 2 days, let's go to the Yu family to see Uncle Yu and the others. Ever since that day, Gu Yundong did not go to the Yu family again. Instead, she let Xue Rong make 2 trips and mention Gu Dajiang's injury. Grandpa Yu wanted to come over and take a look, but he was stopped by Xue Rong. It had not been peaceful recently. Gu Yundong had instructed him not to go out as long as possible, especially since this inn was very close to the Xian residence. Why do I feel that something is amiss? Gu Dajiang suddenly said. There are many people on the streets. Before Gu Yundong could say anything, the waiter beside him came over and nodded. That's right. For some reason, there have been a lot of people these past few days. Our inn's business is doing well. I thought there was something happy to celebrate in the city, but I didn't hear anything after asking around. Gu Yundong laughed. Something happy? A storm is coming. With that, she helped Gu Dajiang in and found a seat in the hall to eat. The waiter touched his head and looked at the bright sun outside. Where is the storm coming from? Why don't I understand? Xue Rong thought, if you understand, you can be the shopkeeper. On the other hand, when Gu Dajiang heard Gu Yundong's words, he asked curiously in a low voice, Yundong, do you know something? What's going to happen at Wanqing Prefecture? Father will know the result in 2 days. However, there was no need to wait for 2 more days. The next morning, the waiter ran into the hall in a panic. Gu Yundong was coming downstairs and saw that his clothes were wet and his hat was gone. Strands of hair were stuck to his face. He was panting and his face was filled with fear. Moreover, at this moment, there was a loud rumble outside. A bolt of lightning struck down, accompanied by the patter of rain. As expected, the atmosphere was already appropriate. The waiter wiped his face and said in a trembling voice, Shopkeeper, the prefecture magistrate has been arrested. The Xiyuan residence has also been raided. Chapter 478. Everyone's shocked. The waiter's words suddenly sounded in the hall. The shopkeeper was so shocked that he forgot about the abacus. Even the guests who were originally sitting there chatting and resting turned to look at him in shock. The shopkeeper walked out from behind the counter without a word and asked anxiously, What did you say just now? What happened? What do you mean by the prefecture magistrate has been arrested and the Xiyuan residence has been raided? What happened? The Xiyuan family? Our Wanqing Prefecture's 100-year-old clan was actually raided? A customer stood up and walked over in disbelief. The waiter was still in shock and his words were a little ethereal. One don't know either. Just now, when I went home to get my things, I walked to the street at the entrance of the Xiyuan residence and saw many soldiers guarding it. The plaque of the Xiyuan residence was also smashed down by those soldiers. All the servants in the residence were taken away. Then, a long row of people were escorted away. All of them lowered their heads and cried. What about the old and young masters of the Xiyuan family? The waiter shook his head vigorously. No, I don't know. I heard that they're still in the residence and haven't come out. Someone even said that they might have been killed by those soldiers on the spot. Not long after, I heard someone run over and say that the prefecture magistrate's office was also surrounded by soldiers. The prefecture magistrate's family has been arrested. I don't know what's going on. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. The shopkeeper slapped his thigh. No wonder there have been many people in the prefecture city recently. I knew something big would happen. As expected. But this matter is too big. I don't even dare to think about it. The waiter finally came back to his senses and nodded repeatedly when he heard the shopkeeper's words. I also heard that these soldiers were transferred over from elsewhere. All of them are unfamiliar fierce faces. They're too terrifying. I originally wanted to go to the entrance of the Xiyuan residence to ask around, but I didn't dare to and ran back. So, did anyone say what they did? The waiter shook his head sadly. I don't know. Gu Yundong was still standing on the stairs and listening. Xue Rong was standing behind her at some point. He looked a little agitated and his eyes were slightly red. Miss, Gu Yundong turned to look at him. Xue Rong tried his best to smile. Miss, you actually did it. The Xiyuan family was such a colossus. Their power was magnificent and they had the backing of the prefecture magistrate and the high officials in the capital. But now, in just half a month, not only had their home been raided, but even the forces behind them had been uprooted. Xue Rong thought that if it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of attracting too much attention outside, he would have knelt down on the spot and kowtowed to the Mississippi. Gu Yundong smiled. Let's go and take a look. Yes. Xue Rong shook his hand and a smile finally appeared on his face. He followed Gu Yundong downstairs. Tong Shuetao, who was standing upstairs, glared at his back fiercely. This Xue Rong must have ulterior motives. He must be a toad lusting after swan meat. He was clearly bought to serve the old master, but he kept approaching Mississippi. He was simply shameless. Miss had been deceived by him. She was so angry. Tong Shuetao kept staring at his figure as he disappeared from the door. Only then did she stomp her feet angrily and turn around to return to her room. The rain outside had stopped, and even the air felt wet. Gu Yundong and Xue Rong walked all the way to the Xue family. Many people were talking about this along the way. Especially not far from the Xue family, everyone was pointing at the place. However, there were soldiers guarding the door, so no one dared to go forward. When they saw Gu Yundong and her servant walking forward, they looked at her as if she was courting death. He must be deaf to not hear her. Can I go in? Of course, the man said with a smile. He made the soldiers retreat and quickly led Gu Yundong inside. Seeing this, the Duan family's young lady was stunned. She quickly took 2 steps forward. Sir, please wait. The man frowned and stopped to look at her unhappily. What is it? Lord, I'm from the Duan family. My eldest brother is Duan Qian. He's inside. Can I go in and talk to him? No. With that, the man turned to smile at Gu Yundong and led her inside. The stairs here are steep. Miss, be careful. Miss Duan was speechless. She was so angry. Chapter 480. A small box. This was the second time Gu Yundong had come to the Xen residence. The last time, she had entered through the back door. This time, he had walked through the main door. The scenery in front of him was completely different. The Xen family was indeed extremely extravagant. No wonder the emperor wanted to destroy it. As she admired the surrounding scenery, she spoke to Xue Rong. Some people have black hearts. When they want me to help them, their attitude is so kind. They say that after everything is over, they will let me choose whatever I want. In the end, after using me, they turn around and pretend not to know me. They even say that I didn't make a sound and they didn't recognize me. It seems that the people I work with are blind and deaf. Xue Rong silently glanced at 4th brother, who was walking in front. The man's back was tense. However, he was secretly complaining in his heart. Why was Miss Gus' gaze so sharp? Previously, she had only seen him once in the small courtyard. She had not even spoken to him. Not only did she recognize him at a glance, but she also knew his ranking. She was simply unbelievable. Gu Yundong continued, I've been thinking about it. I'm not familiar with certain people, and I don't know their character. Will they renege on their debt? That's why I came over early when I heard about what happened here. As expected, they actually pretended not to know me. Heh, that's amazing. Xue Rong, don't do this. You'll be beaten up easily if you do. 4th brother finally could not stand it anymore. He quickly turned his head and smiled. Miss Gu, I was wrong. I promise there won't be a next time. Why don't you hit me twice to vent your anger? No need. Just tell me where the storeroom is. I'll leave after taking what belongs to me. Gu Yundong snorted. 4th brother's expression froze, and his footsteps finally quickened. When he arrived at the door of the warehouse, he saw Am Mo Xulin standing outside and talking to a young man. Am Mo Xulin was stunned for a moment when he saw Gu Yundong. The 4th brother quickly whispered into his ear. Am Mo Xulin's forehead darkened and he almost hit him. How could you? They did not intend to go back on their word. They just wanted to organize the stuff first and take what should be taken away. They would let Gu Yundong choose the rest. However, 4th brother had been seen by others and deliberately turned a blind eye to her. Now, even if he didn't have the intention, others would think that he had gone back on his word. He glared at his 4th son, took a few steps forward and said to Gu Yundong, Miss Gu is here. Yes, Gu Yundong replied coldly. Am Mo Xulin said, the storeroom is being tidied up. Miss Gu, please go in, but he paused and lowered his voice. After this confiscation, all the properties belong to the imperial court. There are some things that the emperor has required, so, Gu Yundong snorted. She knew that there was a prerequisite for her privilege to choose. Alright, I know. I know what I'm doing. Am Mo Xulin heaved a sigh of relief and called out to fourth brother, prepare a box for Mississippi. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. After a while, she saw fourth brother carrying a box over. It was a small box that was 4.0 centimeters long, 20 centimeters wide, and 30 centimeters tall. So, she could only take an entire small box of things, right? TSK, they had really underestimated her. If you have the ability, come and carry an even smaller box. Gu Yundong took the small box and led Xue Rong into the storeroom with her head held high. The young man who was talking to Am Mo Xulin looked on in surprise. Where did this lady come from? Lord Am Mo was actually so polite to her. He even heard a hint of flattery. He wanted to ask, Lord Am Mo, may I know which family's daughter she is? Am Mo Xulin said, her surname is Gu. He was unwilling to say anything else. On the other hand, when fourth brother saw him, he thought of Miss Duan at the door and immediately mentioned it. Duan Qian had a headache. He apologized to Am Mo Xulin and hurried to the door. Chapter 481. Looking at Gu Yundong in a new light. When Gu Yundong entered the storeroom, he realized that many people were registering the things in the storeroom. They were stunned when they saw her enter. It was Am Mo Xulin who came in later and asked everyone to leave first. Only then did everyone leave the storeroom with a puzzled expression. Am Mo Xulin said, Miss Gu, take a look. What do you like? As he spoke, he pointed at 2 large boxes not far away. You can't touch the things inside. Gu Yundong expressed that she understood. That was what the emperor wanted. She understood. She walked forward. There was a lot of gold, silver, jewelry, antiques, calligraphy, and expensive jade artifacts in the warehouse of the Xue family. These things were all placed in large boxes that were piled up in the huge warehouse. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up when she walked closer. Her eyes were sparkling, and she wished she could throw herself at the glittering money. The Xue family was simply too rich. They were simply so rich that it made people want to scream. Am Mo Xulin was so stingy that he only gave her a small box even though there were so many things. Her contributions were only worth the price of a small box? Gu Yundong turned around and glared at him. Am Mo Xulin touched his nose and said uncomfortably, Miss Gu, you know that the imperial court is in urgent need of money. Although this box is small, some things are worth a lot of money. As he spoke, he picked up a piece of calligraphy. This is a masterpiece from the previous dynasty. It's worth 10,000 taels. Then he picked up another book. This is the only book. Many scholars would die for it. Gu Yundong thought that Am Mo Xulin was indeed the leader of this group of people. His positioning was very precise. He knew that she knew how to draw, so he recommended calligraphy and painting. He knew that her brother was studying, so he recommended the only book. She snorted twice, took the 2 items, and placed them in the small box in Xue Rong's hand. Although the calligraphy was too long to be kept inside, it didn't matter. It was the same outside. Seeing this, Am Mo Xulin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He did not leave. He watched as Gu Yundong walked over one box after another. She looked very carefully. Sometimes half of her body was in the box. Am Mo Xulin stood at the back and could not see clearly. He did not know that when Gu Yundong was searching, she took the opportunity to put the silver ingots into her interspace. After finding 2 boxes, Gu Yundong placed a few jade pendants and accessories into a small box. Am Mo Xulin glanced at it and the corner of his mouth twitched. Miss Gu really did not know what was valuable. Why did she choose jade pendants and jewelry? He hurriedly wanted to return it to her, but Gu Yundong glared at him fiercely. Xue Rong fell silent and could only accept it carefully. His heart was filled with sourness and warmth. This was a feeling he had never felt in all his years in the Xan residence. Unfortunately, his sister did not have such good fortune and did not meet such a good master. Xue Rong wiped the corners of his eyes and hurriedly followed Gu Yundong. He did not notice that Am Mo Xulin, who was carrying a small box behind him, was looking at him with envy. Gu Yundong had already gone to the house on the right, where the second young master of the Xie family, Zhiyuan, was locked up. When the door was opened, there was a commotion inside. A few sharp screams instantly came. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.